Chapter 332. World Fragment. Space-Time Singularity. The words from Amada Nami's mouth gave Rei Minkai a sense of déjà vu. But before he could react from his thoughts, there was a movement next to him. Tion, Amada Nami? My and Shiro's daughter. In the previous battle, Aina, who had experienced life and death, was now attracted by Amada Nami's frank admission of her identity. In the end, this might be a normal reaction. No matter who it was, when they suddenly saw someone who looked only a few years younger than them claiming to be their own child, they would certainly not be able to react in the first moment and even subconsciously deny the other party's claim. However, before Aina could ask Amada Nami what was going on, she fainted in someone's arms. Sorry, Aina, perhaps this fact is a very shocking thing for you, but I believe you'll accept it. After all, the other Aina Sakhaline are the same. Shiro Amada gently hugged Aina and turned to look at Amada Nami. Nami, I'll leave this to you. Now, there are more important things that I need to deal with. Yes, father. Amada Nami saluted. Then, Shiro Amada turned his head and looked at Norris, whose face was full of vigilance, but he did not come forward to stop him. Norris, if there's a chance in the future, I hope to talk to you. How about it? Norris was silent for a moment. Since coming here, Norris had been silent, deliberately controlling his sense of existence, so that he could calmly observe the development of things from a bystander's perspective. Lei Minkai, the Long Fong Lion Zero style, Amada Nami, and even the Amada Shiro in Shiro Amada body made Norris unable to accept the things in front of him. I hope so too. So, how should I address you? Shiro Amada? Norris finally asked slowly. You could just call me Shiro. Whether it is him or me, we are all Shiro Amada. It's just that the world we were born in is not the same. Then, Amata Shiro said in a low voice, I'll leave the rest to you. In this world, no matter what your decision is, we will understand and accept your choice. As soon as he finished speaking, in everyone's perception, something seemed to suddenly flow out of Shiro Amada's body. The feeling that Rei Minkai was familiar with also quietly returned. Shiro Amada was still Shiro Amada. Amada Nami. This is the functions of the latest spiritual skeleton. It was able to project the spirit of a new type pilot, whose spirit had reached a certain level into a specific world. However, the conditions to achieve this were extremely harsh. In our Qin army, only the army commander and the other 3 generals can do it. Nami Amada didn't keep the fact that Shiro Amada became Shiro Amada a secret. Instead, she bluntly told the truth to Rei Minkai. And your father is one of the 3 generals? The spiritual skeleton in Rei Minkai's memory did not have the magical ability that Nami Amada described. However, after thinking about it carefully, Rei Minkai felt that the appearance of this magical ability was not too magical. After all, in Rei Minkai's memory, there was a work that described the spiritual skeleton even more magical. That was the Mech Warrior Gao Nt. This work might have been an extension of the unicorn Gao Da success. In terms of setting and plot, it was based on the abilities of the spiritual skeleton. Its performance was more detailed and bolder. Rei Minkai remembered that in the battle, the fully activated Phoenix Gao Da could even go back in time for a short period of time, although it would be blocked by the I force field. However, if this ability was strengthened and expanded, it was indeed possible to achieve the magical ability that Nami Amada described. No. However, Nami Amada shook her head. Father is not one of the 3 generals. It was only because of the uniqueness of this world that Father was able to use the spiritual skeleton's ability to establish a spiritual link with Shiro Amada of this world. I see. One problem was solved, but there were still other problems waiting to be solved. Then, what's with the space-time singularity? Let's talk about it when we get back. Right now, we still have some things to deal with. Nami Amada smiled slightly and did not have the intention to continue speaking. She only raised her hand and pressed on her wristwatch. Then, she turned around and looked at Norris and Shiro Amada, who had already recovered. Grandpa Norris, and you can call me Shiro. Nami. Shiro Amada took the lead and spoke to help Nami Amada out of the situation. After all, they had a close relationship. However, due to the difference in the world, it was not appropriate for them to address each other as father and daughter. All right, Shiro and Aina, please follow me. The injuries on your bodies need to be treated immediately. The battlefield here can be left to our professionals to take care of. Don't worry, the Federation of this world is not paying attention to the battlefield here. Even the Mechanical Hybrid Brigade will not be paying attention to the situation here in a short period of time. As Nami Amada spoke, a gust of wind suddenly rose. Then, a stream of light flashed past. It was a transport aircraft with a jet engine that slowly changed from a horizontal state to a vertical state. It slowly landed behind Nami Amada. Everyone, please come with me. Inspector Ray Minkai, you too. Questions about you will be answered later. The world fragment, the space-time singularity, and even the miss. Q that you had a fierce battle with before. These questions can be answered for you. Ray Minkai turned around and glanced at the Tusk Line Zero. The latter flashed with white light and turned back into the White Cat Zero. It was still biting the fragment in its mouth and had no intention of letting go. This scene caused Shiro Amada and Norris to reveal shocked expressions. Norris was naturally not surprised. In his worldview, there was no such thing as a gigantic steel lion turning back into a cute kitten in the blink of an eye. Shiro Amada could not believe that such a miraculous thing could happen in this world. Even if, in the spiritual exchange between the two Shiro Amada, he learned some things from the general with the same name. Let's go, everyone. After holding the White Cat Zero in his arms, Ray Minkai nodded at Shiro Amada and Norris, indicating for them to follow. In the roar of the transport aircraft, the group slowly rose into the sky and flew towards the destination mentioned by Nami Amada. Pada. The sound of high heels stepping on the ground was ear-piercing. Just like its owner's unwillingness at the moment, the steel plates on the ground were stepped on fiercely, leaving small holes in them. Miss Q. Even if you step on the floor, you'll not be able to redeem your failure. In the shadows, a voice with a hint of ridicule slowly sounded. At the same time, a face with white foundation and a slightly scary smile appeared in front of the woman. Mr. J, I didn't expect that you, who had been running around all day, would have the time to look for me. You really surprised me. Miss Q's eyes that were originally filled with resentment suddenly changed, flashing with a light that only appeared when she saw something interesting. No. Mississippi, I'm just trying to fulfill our long-cherished wish. Now, the purpose of my visit is to inform you that soon, our new Mr. K will make an appearance at the meeting of all the final counselors. Miss Q, please be sure to attend. Mr. J bowed slightly, performed a gentlemanly salute to Miss Q, and slowly stated his purpose of visit. Mr. K? A new one? What happened to the original Mr. K? Was he defeated? Miss Q frowned slightly. In the organization, people with the titles of Mr. and Miss were not people who fished for fame. Every person with the title of Mr. and Miss more or less had the means to fight against the world alone. But such an existence would actually undergo a change in iterations? Yes, the previous Mr. K has been killed. No, according to the current meaning, Mr. K hasn't been killed. It's just that Mr. K has been replaced by Mr. K. Mr. J's face that was covered with white foundation frowned slightly, almost squeezing into a flower, and said something that was rather tongue-twisting. Although it was a tongue-twister, Miss Q understood what Mr. J meant. The original Mr. K was dead. The one who killed him was the other Mr. K in the many parallel worlds. After all, Miss Q had experienced this before, but it was not as frequent as Mr. K. Also, Miss Q knew why Mr. K did this. The purpose was none other than to prove one of Dr. Zisali's research. Judging from Mr. J's reaction, there seemed to be new developments in this research. I understand. Then, I'll return to the headquarters after I finish what I'm doing. Mr. J, figuring it out was one thing, but whether or not he would return immediately was another matter altogether. Miss Q, who was dissatisfied with the previous failure, did not want to go back empty-handed. Mr. J saw Miss Q's dissatisfaction with a glance. Mr. J, who knew every member's plan like the back of his hand, noticed that there was no loot behind Miss Q. It was the Absolus 3 that had been parasitized by skeleton fusion. However, Mr. J did not intend to pursue this matter. Instead, he bowed again. I've already delivered the message. Miss Q, then, I'll take my leave first. Also, before I leave, I think there's a piece of information that I must inform you of. Miss Q was very satisfied with Mr. J's initiative to leave. Moreover, Miss Q was relieved that he did not harass her about the failure of her plan. Once this guy named Mr. J became entangled, he was an extremely annoying existence. What news? Miss Q raised her eyes and looked at Mr. J's pale face. The fleet. The legendary fleet seems to have started moving. Perhaps some of us will become its prey. The smile on Mr. J's face was still playful, as if the information he was talking about had nothing to do with him. The legendary fleet? Miss Q narrowed her eyes slightly and said subconsciously, is it the fleet commanded by the one known as the Pioneer? Yes. Although our current strength is very strong, we can't threaten this legendary fleet. Fortunately, it's now the active period of the Abyss. Perhaps we can use the already active Abyss to speed up the completion of our plan. Mr. J chuckled, and his pale face became even scarier. Relying on the cover of the Abyss? That's true. We, a group of pitiful creatures lost in the multiverse, can only rely on the existence of the Abyss to fulfill our long-cherished wish. Miss Q raised her head slightly and looked at the deep and endless darkness above her head. Everything will be for the sake of fulfilling our long-cherished wish. Mr. J bowed again and saluted the endless darkness. Then, Miss Q, I look forward to seeing you again at the inevitable council. Goodbye. The darkness surged like a tide, and Mr. J's pale face disappeared into the endless darkness, leaving Miss Q standing alone in this empty space. Our actions have attracted the attention of the pioneers. Miss Q's whisper gradually sounded. Since the founding of the final counselor, countless worlds have been destroyed by their hands. Or, before this news came, they could use the fact that the Abyss was active as a cover. But now, this boundary had been broken. Perhaps the appearance of the Steel Lion was not a coincidence. Perhaps it was a counterattack from the many destroyed worlds. Is that so? If it's just a counterattack, it won't be able to stop us from fulfilling our long-cherished wish. Steel Lion, I'll wait for you. Miss Q raised her hand and snapped her fingers, then disappeared into the portal that opened up. At the same time, Ray Minkai also received the information he wanted to know. Based on the above, according to the analysis of the information collected by our Army's intelligence department, the group that is currently operating in the dark and destroying many worlds should be an organization called the Inevitable Council. The holographic screen lit up behind Amada Nami, and the information was constantly changing. In addition, our intelligence personnel paid a heavy price to obtain the information about the people related to this organization. Mr. K, Miss Q, and Mr. J. Mr. K naturally did not need to say anything. That was how Lei Minkai found out who Mr. K really was. That was Lu Lucio V, Britannia from another parallel world. Miss Q was the existence that he had fought with not long ago, and was even the murderer that destroyed Soth's mechanical beast. As for Mr. J, it was the first time Ray Minkai heard this name. Not to mention, the White Cat State Zero was still biting on the world fragment and did not let go at all. Now, other than raising its eyes from time to time to glance at the information given by Amada Nami, the White Cat State Zero put all its attention on the world fragment. Yes, I don't need to introduce Mr. K and Miss Q. According to the administration's resume about you, other than fighting with Miss Q, you also came into contact with Mr. K. Therefore, these two people can be skipped. Amada Nami paused, raised her hand, and pointed at the name called Mr. J. She said, as for this Mr. J, Other than this name, we know nothing about him. What? Other than the name, you know nothing about him? Ray Minkai was stunned and asked in disbelief. Yes, although it's embarrassing to say it, it's also the truth. The name Mr. J was discovered by our intelligence personnel by chance. Amada Nami sighed and continued. Therefore, one of the goals of our fleet this time is to find out as much information as possible about this being named MRJ. This is also the reason why we are here. Is that so? So it's just a coincidence. I thought it was Captain Hudson and the others who sent you here to support me. To be honest, Captain Hudson did send us a distress signal, so this is not entirely a coincidence. Amada Nami smiled and moved her finger. The holographic projection screen behind her changed again. Sir Inspector, you now have a new mission. Is it the next world? Ray Minkai remembered what Hudson had told him before entering World 08 MS. Yes. The space-time singularity that appeared this time is not a single phenomenon. Sir Inspector, although you've already dealt with the singularity of this world, according to our intelligence, the escaped miss Q may have other backup plans. Now, it's up to your lion to bite this cunning fox. Roar. Kai. Go. Hearing miss Q's next move, the white cat state 0 swallowed the fragment in one breath and let out a roar. Then what's the next world? Don't worry. According to our intelligence, the enemy of the next singularity should not make your Lancelot feel small. Chapter 333. The cold wind rustled as it was crushed by the heavy snow. The bent trees made the endless snowfield seem even more deathly still. Right now, it was the fiercest day of winter. It was also the 7th day since Lei Minkai and State 0 came to this ice field that was covered with white snow and countless withered branches in the winter. Hey, Kai, how long do we have to wait here? The snow-white fur blended perfectly with the color of the ice field. If it weren't for the pair of golden eyes, Ray Minkai might have lost sight of his partner, White Cat State 0, when he wasn't paying attention. Wait a little longer. We've been here for a week. A few more days won't make a difference. What's more, Amada Nami has already prepared everything for us. According to the current material reserves, even if we stay in this ice field for 3 months, we won't fall to the point where we need to ask for help. Ray Minkai put down the binoculars in his hand and couldn't help but think of the information provided by Amada Nami a week ago when he decided to continue to participate in the mission to track Miss Q. What Ray Minkai didn't expect was that the world that Amada Nami said would not make Lancelot feel small was the Metal Frenzy world that Ray Minkai was very familiar with. Lei Minkai couldn't help but sigh at such a coincidence. At the same time, he was secretly glad that Lancelot was still able to continue fighting. In the previous battle with Apsaras III, Ray Minkai realized that Lancelot was showing signs of weakness. Although its radiation shield was still tough, Lancelot's sword had already encountered a wall that could not be split open. If this continued, not only would Lancelot be unable to effectively harm the enemy, but Ray Minkai would also have to use the tusked Lion State 0 as a normal battle mech. But in this way, Ray Minkai and White Cat State 0's target would become bigger and bigger. Ray Minkai had reason to believe that after the last battle, Miss must be hiding somewhere and planning the next move to target the tusked Lion State 0. Or, Miss did not put the tusked Lion State 0 in her eyes. However, these were only Ray Minkai's own speculations. There was no evidence to prove it. Therefore, the only thing that could be done now was to follow the plan and try to find traces of Miss in this world. Although Ray Minkai did not have much hope, Amada Nami had a lot of confidence in Ray Minkai and the White Cat State 0's luck. Don't worry, Mr. Inspector Lei. According to the report we got from a source, you and your kitten have a deviation rate to some extent. Perhaps, with the help of this deviation rate, you can help us find the key to the fog that we have been unable to see through. What did deviation rate mean? Ray Minkai did not know, but he could hear from Amada Nami's tone that he seemed to be a troublemaker. Could it be that even if he sat at home, a big pot would fall from the sky? The cold wind was still whistling and the dead silence still shrouded this barren ice field. Even if Ray Minkai had thousands of thoughts, he could not affect this dead silence. Until Kai. There's a situation. White Cat State Zero, who was lying lazily on a pile of snow, turned over, straightened its upper body, and looked at the depths of the ice field where the cold wind was whistling. Ray Minkai listened carefully, and carefully distinguished the noise mixed in the whistling cold wind. After a long time, Ray Minkai's eyes flashed. It's the sound of an engine, and it seems to be the sound of an armed helicopter. State Zero, we have work to do. Roar. In the next second, the cold wind rolled up the snow, and Ray Minkai and the White Cat State Zero's figures were completely covered in this gust of wind. Woo, woo, woo. The hiss of the car engine echoed on the barren ice field. Amidst the hiss of the engine, the black shadow of the car was also quickly shuttling through this dead, silent forest. Wah, wah, bang. Although the snow field under the wheels looked flat, in fact, there were many hidden potholes. If it wasn't for the fact that the driver of the off-road Jeep was an expert, the Jeep wouldn't have been able to move even an inch. Amidst the bumpy ride, the red-haired girl in tattered clothes sat in the front passenger seat. She had a nervous expression and bit her finger that had been bitten and was bleeding. She didn't seem to feel any pain at all. The look on her face made the driver's heart ache. Not long ago, the driver and his partner rescued this unfortunate girl from a secret research institute, but unfortunately, they were discovered by the enemy and ended up in this forest running around. Stop biting your finger. The driver could not bear it, and finally opened his mouth to scold her. However, the girl only responded to the driver's scolding with a dull expression. Let me bite. Otherwise, let me die. As soon as the sentence came out, the girl kept repeating several times, and once again opened her mouth to bite her thumb. Hey, shut up. Ka, woo. Amidst the sound of bones being crushed, it was the driver's painful groan. It turned out that when the girl was about to bite her thumb, the driver, who could no longer watch, reached out and pressed the girl's hand. As a result, his palm was fiercely bitten by the girl. However, such an accident made the driver secretly heave a sigh of relief. I didn't think that those guys would do such a cruel thing to you. But at least he stopped the girl's self-harming behavior. Moreover, after this, the rugged mountain road in front of them seemed to have come to an end. Look, it's the mountain area. We can go home. The shadow of the mountains that appeared in front of them was not a signal for the driver and the girl to escape from the suffering. Instead, it became a sign of death. In the night sky, where the cold wind blew, the roar of the missile launch suppressed the sound of the cold wind at this moment. When the wire guidance reached its limit, it passed over the off-road Jeep and suddenly exploded in front of it. Boom! The powerful torrent of flames set off by the explosion of the missile rushed face-to-face toward the off-road Jeep, and in the next moment, mercilessly sent the speeding off-road Jeep into the air. Boom! In a violent explosion, a slender figure weakly flew out of the Jeep's window and fell heavily on the snow like a kite with a broken string. Fortunately, the place where the slender figure fell was thick enough snow as a buffer, so she was lucky enough to escape the disaster. However, the driver who rescued the girl was not so lucky. When the Jeep was sent flying by the explosion, the kind-hearted driver only had time to take out the information disk about the secret research institute before the Jeep rolled and fell to the ground dead. The cold and the sharp pain made the girl sit up from the snow with difficulty. Then, driven by instinct, the girl slowly walked to the side of the broken Jeep and took the disc from the dead driver. However, before the girl had time to remember the contents of the disc, the sound of an engine came from the night sky again. It was a helicopter gunship. The helicopter gunship that blew up the Jeep roared in the gusts of wind and slowly landed behind the girl. Its pilot looked at the girl's long hair that kept flying in the bone-chilling wind and revealed a sinister smile. Then, without hesitation, he pulled the trigger. Vroom, vroom, vroom. The four-barreled Gatling gun installed under the nose of the armed helicopter let out a terrifying roar and fired a barrage of bullets. In the midst of the barrage of bullets, the broken Jeep exploded in a flash, and in the blink of an eye, the Jeep exploded with a loud bang. The strong shockwave set off by the explosion lifted the girl who stood still in the same place. After powerlessly tumbling a few times in the air, she fell heavily on the snow again. However, the young girl's pitiful state did not arouse the pity of the military helicopter pilot. Instead, looking at the young girl's increasingly fearful face amidst the gunfire, the pilot's warped heart actually received a great deal of joy. Therefore, the trigger was still held down and pressed rhythmically. Under the deliberate control of the pilot, the bullets whizzed through the snow around the girl, creating deep holes in the snow. The thick snow was blown into the air and scattered on the girl's body under the fire of the gun barrel. In the midst of the gunfire and the snow, the girl's survival instinct made her struggle, but it was useless. The struggling girl at this moment was just a toy for the pilot who had turned into a devil. In the midst of the gunfire, a green light vaguely flashed across the night sky above her head. And this scene flashed across the girl's lifeless eyes. Then, the frightening flashing red light and the shrill fire control radar alarm pulled the attention of the helicopter pilot back. However, when the pilot subconsciously controlled the helicopter to turn and look at the location of the fire control radar alarm, a black shadow suddenly swept out from the dark forest and accurately hit the tail of the helicopter. Pah! Squeak! At the same time as the sound of steel being torn apart reached the girl's ears, a red light followed. Under the girl's gaze, the red light descended from the sky and directly cut the helicopter into two halves. The helicopter had lost control of its tail and was now in a state of chaos. Zap! The red light flashed, and the helicopter suddenly exploded. But at the moment when the helicopter exploded, the girl suddenly felt a warm wind behind her. At the same time, a pair of beautiful fluorescent green light wings and a pair of platinum steel hands, painted with gorgeous patterns, firmly protected her. Until the explosion of the helicopter came to an end, only the burning wreckage was left. Staring blankly at the wreckage of the helicopter engulfed in flames, the girl suddenly turned around and looked back. The next moment, what appeared in front of the girl was a white body that looked like a medieval knight, but the body was painted with a variety of gorgeous patterns. What caught the girl's attention the most was the pair of fluorescent green light wings that slowly folded behind the white body. Gotcha! The cockpit of the white body opened. A young man wearing a white driving suit with lion patterns embroidered on the shoulders and chest lightly landed on the snow and slowly came in front of the girl. Don't worry. Now you're safe. Mira. Humanoid mobile weapon AS. The girl's eyes did not seem to fall on the young man, but fell on the white body behind him. No, Mira. This is not AS. This is Nightmare, the 7th generation Nightmare, Lancelot. The girl's muttering did not escape the young man's ears, but he did not care about the girl's mistake of mistaking Lancelot as an ass. Instead, the young man extended his right hand and invited the girl. Come, Mira. Now you're safe. No one will be able to hurt you anymore. In the name of the Britannia Empire. BR Britannia Empire? Who are you? The girl seemed to have never heard of the empire that the young man mentioned. So, she subconsciously asked a question. I'm Ray Minkai. Mira, remember, my name is Ray Minkai. The young man softly said his name, but the girl was already under the influence of the overload caused by hunger and cold, as well as the overload caused by the chase, and her eyes turned black and she fainted. State 0, let's go. The young man gently carried the girl and looked back at the white body that he called Lancelot. Half an hour later, when the flames on the Jeep and the military helicopter's wreckage were about to extinguish, 3 huge figures suddenly appeared from the void and looked back and forth at the area that had become quiet again. They were the latest model of Mithril's main Force AS, M9. Confirmed the battle area. But no enemies were found, not even the target. A calm but somewhat immature voice came from the humanoid mobile weapon M9 on the right. It's the same on my side. No matter how I look at it, there's not a single enemy around. It's as if the enemies in this area have already been dealt with before we arrived. A slightly cynical male voice came through the communication channel. Yes, very likely. Continue searching. After half an hour, if we still can't find any useful clues, we will immediately retreat from this area. Also, Wilbur, inform the son of the Dan's slave to be prepared. Perhaps, before we arrived, there really was another group of people who intercepted us. A female voice came from the M9 that had been standing in the leader's position. She was the captain of the M9 school team, Mal Melissa. Yes, Sister Mal, do it now. The M9 that was hiding in the sniper position immediately sent an emergency message to the mothership at the rear, the son of the Dan's slave. What? Someone beat us to the punch and snatched the target. In the deep sea, a very soft voice exclaimed. Chapter 334. Apart from the many oceans and many continents, Australia, which was located in the southern hemisphere, was peaceful. This was what Ray Minkai thought. Of course, the reason for this peace might be because Ray Minkai and the others were a few streets away from the business district, and it might have a close relationship with the headquarters of an organization. Now, the sun was shining brightly, and it was a good day for people to enjoy leisure. In this leisure time, Ray Minkai brought the White Cat, State Zero, to an open-air coffee shop in the business district, slowly drinking black tea. The girl, Mira, who was saved by Ray Minkai, was in the clothing store next door, choosing suitable clothes with the help of the staff. Hey, Kai, what are you trying to do? After staying in that world of ice and snow for a week, you came here for another week. What are you planning? However, this leisure time was not something that everyone could enjoy with a clear conscience. Perhaps it was just a slightly irritable kitten that could not enjoy the leisure time with a clear conscience. Don't be impatient. State Zero. Now, we're just waiting for the rabbit to come out. Ray Minkai slowly turned the small spoon in the cup and smiled gently. Waiting for the rabbit to come out? What are you trying to do? Don't tell me you want to bring the little girl to fight with Miss Q? State Zero's voice revealed a trace of anger. State Zero did not object to Ray Minkai wanting to save the little girl, but if he wanted to bring the little girl to fight with Miss Q, State Zero did not think that the little girl would have any fighting power. No matter how he looked at it, the little girl was not only physically weak, but also had the side effect of a mental breakdown due to the excessive injection of psychotropic drugs. Don't worry, Myra's role is not in fighting, but in other aspects. Ray Minkai picked up the teacup and slowly drank a mouthful of black tea. Moreover, although a mental breakdown is troublesome, isn't it actually developing in a good direction? Ever since she was rescued by Ray Minkai and crossed the entire Pacific Ocean from the cold far east to Australia, which was located in the southern hemisphere, Myra's mental state had gradually stabilized. Perhaps this is because the secret research facility is located in the Pacific Ocean, or perhaps, while he was thinking, Ray Minkai glanced at the white cat lying on the table and muttered to himself, "What the hell? Maybe it's the magical power of the cute cat." Every time Ray Minkai recalled an interesting thing that happened after Mira woke up, he would find it funny. But apart from being funny, he could not help but feel sad and angry for the hellish torture that Mira had gone through. The young girl who had just woken up was in a daze, as if she had lost her soul. At first, Ray Minkai thought it was just an overreaction caused by the previous battle. But in the following 2 days, the young girl was completely indifferent to the food that Ray Minkai put in front of her. Looking at the young girl's increasingly pale face and empty eyes, Ray Minkai tried all kinds of methods to make the young girl eat, but to no avail. Finally, the white cat, State Zero, could not stand it anymore and angrily transformed back into a lion form, roaring at the young girl. "Little girl, hurry up and eat for me. Otherwise, I will bite you to death." Roar. Miraculously, in the midst of State Zero's threatening roar, the dazed young girl actually slowly moved, picking up the food on the table and eating it mouthful by mouthful. But this time, Ray Minkai could not stand it anymore, because the young girl's eating method was very rough. Her appearance was as scary as a reincarnation of a hungry ghost. She did not care whether the food was fully chewed or not. She just mechanically bit and swallowed it with force. In the end, Ray Minkai, who could not stand it anymore, took away the young girl's food and prepared a moderately hot meat porridge for her. Just eating was so troublesome. It was no wonder that the white cat, State Zero, had such a big opinion of Mira. But what was even more amazing was that in these few days of recuperation, Mira, who had gradually improved, was actually calm about the fact that the white cat, State Zero, could speak, which surprised Ray Minkai. One must know that among the many humans who had interacted with the white cat, there was almost no one who was as calm as Mira. Maybe it's the result of the spiritual reconstruction after experiencing a mental breakdown. In this regard, the white cat, State Zero, also snorted a few times and no longer cared about Mira. Ding-ling-ling, the wind chime in the clothing store rang. The first to appear in front of Ray Minkai was a young girl wearing a light blue dress with a white gauze hat on her head that covered most of her red hair. Following behind him were two shop assistants who were carrying large and small bags in their hands. The expressions on their faces were respectful and joyful. They did not expect to receive such a generous customer at this time of the day when there were not many people coming and going. "Mr. Lay, this is the list of clothes that Miss Lay wants to buy. Is it cash or credit card?" The store manager came out from behind the two shop assistants who were carrying bags of various sizes and handed the list to Ray Minkai respectfully. Ray Minkai did not immediately respond to the store manager. Instead, he looked at the young girl who was still skinny, but her mental state had stabilized. "Mira, do you like these clothes?" The young girl's pupils constricted, but she still nodded hesitantly in the end. Obviously, Mira had not gotten rid of the shadow of the excessive reaction caused by the mental breakdown. But this did not matter. There was still a lot of time. To be able to recover to this extent in just a short week was already an amazing thing. After getting Myra's affirmation, Ray Minkai prepared to pay with his credit card when an old voice suddenly rang out. "This little brother, if you don't mind, can I pay for this lovely young lady?" And, hearing this, Ray Minkai turned around and looked. An old man with a head full of white hair who was meticulously combed and wearing a straight perm shirt was surrounded by two tall and strong bodyguards. He came to the side of Ray Minkai and his group. There was a friendly smile on his aged face, as if he was a loving old man looking at the young man he loved. "You are?" Ray Minkai's face was puzzled, but he secretly said in his heart, "Come, I'm just a lonely old man. No need to panic. If my rash action offended you and made you feel uncomfortable, I can apologize for it and turn around and leave." The old man's eyes stayed on Mira for a moment, then looked at Ray Minkai. Obviously, the old man knew from the beginning that the one who could speak here was Ray Minkai. "No, I am honored to know a respectable elder like you. But even so, I can't accept a favor for no reason. Let me do it myself." Ray Minkai shook his head and handed over his card. When Ray Minkai came to this world, Amadonami had prepared a sufficient amount of funds for him to carry out his mission. Very ambitious young man. "Then, can I invite you to dinner?" To be honest, a long time ago, I had thought that if I had a well-behaved daughter among my descendants, I would not have fallen to this state today. The old man laughed, but there was a trace of appreciation in his eyes. "Mira, can you?" Ray Minkai did not refuse the old man's invitation. On the contrary, the reason he appeared here was for this. But before that, Ray Minkai had to take Myra's feelings into consideration. This little girl who had not yet come out of her mental breakdown, being able to persevere in the clothing store while surrounded by the staff until now was probably her limit. "No, I can still persevere." Mira carefully hid behind Ray Minkai and whispered, "Okay then." Ray Minkai nodded and turned to look at the store manager. "Send these clothes to the front desk of this hotel and say that they are from 2001 Ray Minkai." "Yes. Thank you very much for your patronage." An hour later, Ray Minkai and Mira arrived at a mansion in the suburbs. As far as the eye could see, the mansion was located on an endless plain. Apart from this mansion, there were no other signs of man-made buildings within a few kilometers of the plain. There was only a lawn that was obviously carefully cut by man, as well as a small forest in the southeast. "This is my home. When summer comes, I will come here to live for a few months." This place has not welcomed a new guest for 10 years. Standing in front of the mansion, the old man looked at the carefully cut garden and sighed. Is that so? Then, Mira and I are very honored to be guests here. Ray Minkai looked around and bowed slightly. I'm very sorry. I haven't introduced myself yet. I'm Ray Minkai, and this is my sister Mira. May I know who you are? Haha. Speaking of which, I forgot about it. I'm very sorry. I'm Mallory, an ordinary old man. You can call me by my name. Of course, it would be best if this young lady could call me Grandpa. The old man laughed and nodded. When he said his name, he did not forget to look at Mira, who was still hiding behind Ray Minkai. At this moment, the white cat, State Zero, was lying in Myra's arms as a pet cat, seemingly indifferent to the things around it. I'm sorry. Before coming here, my sister was stimulated. For her now, it is very difficult for her to communicate with strangers. The old man's goodwill was somewhat out of Ray Minkai's expectations. Is that so? It doesn't matter. After all, we were just strangers not long ago. Come, please come in. In the following journey, it was the traditional process of the aristocrats introducing their family history to the guests. But this process was quite boring for Ray Minkai. After all, in this aspect, the stubborn aristocrats of Britannia were the best representatives. As the knight captain of the Queen's personal guards, Ray Minkai had attended such events several times. After a tour, they finally came to the main topic. Miss Mira, there's still some time before dinner. Why don't you take a bath first to relieve your fatigue? Don't worry. Fanny has prepared everything. When everyone returned to the luxuriously decorated hall, the old man who claimed to be Mallory took the initiative to make a suggestion. At the same time, a middle-aged woman wearing a long-sleeved maid uniform with her long hair tied up stood in the hall, waiting for a response. Mira, go. State Zero will accompany you. Ray Minkai turned his head and said softly. Mira hesitated for a moment. Her right hand holding the white cat moved, but Mira forcibly suppressed the instinct to raise her hand and bite her thumb. Can I go? After a long time, Mira asked with a trembling voice. Perhaps it was because she was afraid of passing by Ray Minkai's side. Yes, go. State Zero will accompany you. You have to know that even if everyone in this house were to join forces, they would not be a match for State Zero, right? Ray Minkai smiled and raised his hand to touch Myra's head. Well then, I'll go. Mira nodded, then lowered her head and softly begged. Ward Zero, I'm counting on you. Meow. White Cat State Zero opened its eyes slightly. After glancing at Ray Minkai, it responded lazily and left the hall with a maid named Fanny in Myra's arms. Sir Ray, there is still some time before dinner. Why don't we take a rest first? That's what I was thinking. In fact, the rest was fake. Mallory's suggestion to let Mira take a bath was to send away the irrelevant people and leave a space for him to talk with Ray Minkai. After the well-dressed and respectful butler poured the two of them some fragrant black tea, he quietly left the room and closed the door behind him. Sir Ray, please. Mallory put the crutch in his hand on the side of the chair, picked up the cup, and slowly drank the black tea in the cup. Ray Minkai did not pick up the cup. He just turned his head and looked out of the window, waiting for Mallory to take the initiative to speak. Don't you want to try the black tea? You have to know, this is Old Jack's proudest work. To be honest, after getting used to Old Jack's black tea, I've not gotten used to the black tea outside for the past few decades. Mallory put down the cup and sighed slightly. Obviously, he felt regretful about his picky taste. Humans will always get used to things that they are used to. In addition, unfamiliar things will eventually cause instinctive fear in humans, right? Even if that thing has the same appearance as the thing that they are familiar with. Suddenly, Ray Minkai said something that was hard to understand. But Mallory unexpectedly understood Ray Minkai's meaning. Is that so? Exploring the unknown is one of the actions that humans take because of their fear of the unknown. No matter how fearful among humans, there will always be some brave people who will uncover the truth that causes this fear. Sir Ray, there has never been a lack of such brave people in human history. Ray Minkai smiled, picked up the cup, and took a sip. However, after discovering this fear, Humans who learn the truth will always be unable to resist their greed and try to take the power behind the truth for themselves, even if a huge disaster will happen because of this. Mallory looked at Ray Minkai, put down the cup, and sighed slightly. The greed of humans will always cause humans to repeat the same tragedy. No matter how good the starting point is, in the process of pursuing it, there will always be people who get lost, and there will always be people who fall. Ray Minkai raised his eyebrows slightly. However, among these people, there will always be people who insist on their own ideals, who will not be changed by external factors, and who will not be changed by other people. Mallory looked up at Ray Minkai and seemed to be a little surprised, but he shook his head slightly. Lofty ideals do not represent reality. The diversity of reality is unable to carry out lofty ideals. No matter how hard you work on the path of your ideals, there will always be various obstacles. However, life itself is a compromise transaction. In order to achieve your ideals, the necessary compromises are necessary. Isn't that so? Compromise? Ha ha! Mallory burst out laughing, but his voice was muffled by it. Too much compromise will inevitably lead to greater compromise until the unfulfilled wishes of the parents who paid countless prices to realize their ideals are completely obliterated. Then, why don't we just flip the table and start all over again? Ray Minkai's answer stunned Mallory. After a long time, Mallory suddenly laughed loudly. Ha ha! Interesting. I didn't expect you to be such an interesting man. Looks like I made the right decision today. Then, Sir Ray Minkai, who saved Miss Mira. Who are you? Chapter 335. Ray Minkai. Why do you think the space-time singularity appeared? Standing in front of the holographic screen, Amada Nami raised a question. World fragments. Ray Minkai remembered that Amada Nami mentioned that the world fragments were the reason for the appearance of the space-time singularity when they met. However, looking at Amada Nami's expression, there seemed to be other reasons. That's right. The appearance of the space-time singularity is indeed caused by the world fragments. But here, there's a lack of a trigger. Amada Nami nodded and said another possibility that Ray Minkai guessed. Trigger. Ray Minkai pondered for a while and seemed to understand, but he couldn't explain it. In the previous battle, Hinia's behavior seemed to be confirming something. Yes, trigger. After the collapse of the world fragments scattered in various universes are stable in a sense. Without some trigger or artificial influence, the world fragments will only be as inconspicuous as the stones on the roadside. Of course, this doesn't rule out the possibility that the world fragments are already in an active state when they fall into a certain world. Amada Nami didn't finish her words. She just paused and continued to talk about the world fragments. Therefore, other than the world fragments that are activated by artificial factors, we can only encounter world fragments that are activated by some kind of trigger. Then what is the trigger? Is it some kind of extreme emotion, thought, or spirit possessed by certain people? After listening to Amada Nami's words, Ray Minkai suddenly seemed to understand something. Yes, Inspector's guess is normal. In the similar incidents that our army encountered, it was indeed the extreme thoughts, emotions, and even spirits of certain individuals that triggered the activation of the world fragments, resulting in the appearance of the space-time singularity. Ray Minkai pondered for a moment. When he thought of the mission to enter the all-metal world, he subconsciously asked, so, in the next mission, I have to pay special attention to individuals that may have extreme thoughts, emotions, and spirits. These individuals may be the space-time singularity itself? Amada Nami nodded and said in a certain tone, yes. Although I haven't personally experienced the space-time singularity, these conclusions were all made by our army commander, Sir Pioneer. In his mind, memories of the exchange with Amada Nami about the space-time singularity flashed past. In front of him was the seemingly casual question that Mallory asked. Lei Mingkai couldn't help but sigh as he looked at Mallory's calm and proud face that didn't reveal his identity, as expected of an old fox. But in the next second, Lei Mingkai's heart tightened secretly. The person sitting in front of him was not an ordinary old man, but Mr. H.G., the current manager of Amalgam, as well as the founder of the Mithril mercenary organization, which was his rival. These two identities were shocking. No one could have imagined that the two organizations that could influence the direction of the entire world were actually founded by the same person. However, behind this seemingly shocking identity, there was an extremely sad truth. Mallory, as the current manager of the Armada, did not have actual control over the Armada. Ever since the summer of 1948, Mallory's grandfather, a man with amazing talent, and the other four geniuses established the Armada in order to let the world and mankind finally move towards the noble ideal of mutual understanding and peaceful unification. In the following 20 years, after the continuous replacement of members and the accelerated expansion of the organization, the noble ideals created by Mallory's grandfather had been lost. What was left was the unparalleled power. The power of the cadres attacked each other and fought for power. For this reason, they did not hesitate to plunge the world into disputes. The changes in the past 20 years had disappointed Mallory, who greatly respected the noble ideals left behind by his grandfather. However, even in the face of disappointment, Mallory did not give up the idea of saving the Armada. Therefore, after some work, the inhibitor of the Armada, Mithril, was born. This was a terrifying man. Lei Mingkai's eyes met Mallory's in midair. Mallory's emotions were stable. He was waiting for Lei Mingkai's answer. Even though Lei Mingkai had been silent since he asked, he still maintained enough patience and waited for Lei Mingkai to speak. Gradually, Lei Mingkai revealed a smile and slowly said, "Sir, I'm just an ordinary person who wants to bring my sister around. If I were to use your previous words to describe me, I am an ordinary man. Currently, my biggest wish is to heal my sister's mental trauma." As Lei Mingkai spoke, he picked up the cup and slowly took a sip. He raised his gaze and calmly met Mallory's gaze. Extreme thoughts, emotions, and mental state. During the observation just now, Mallory was not the only one observing Lei Mingkai. He himself had also become the target of Lei Mingkai's observation. Fortunately, Lei Mingkai did not find any extreme thoughts, emotions, or mental state from Mallory. If this old man, who wanted to stop the diseased amalgam from going down the wrong path at all costs, was the space-time singularity itself, this might be a very shocking thing. However, Lei Mingkai was certain that the old man in front of him was not the space-time singularity itself. Ordinary? Lei Mingkai's answer stunned Mallory for a moment. Then he laughed out loud. He did not expect that his momentary excuse would become Lei Mingkai's excuse, an excuse that left him speechless. This result made Mallory feel a little helpless, but at the same time, he began to admire it. However, admiration was one thing, and the matter had to continue. Fine. Humans will eventually have all kinds of secrets that they do not want others to know. This was inevitable. However, at some point, these secrets may inadvertently hurt others and even affect the operation of the entire human society. Sir Lei Mingkai, what do you think? The confrontation between words was invisible. Lei Mingkai repeatedly evaded the important and mentioned that he was just an ordinary person, but Mallory was trying to find out Lei Mingkai's identity in a roundabout way. To be honest, after this exchange, even if Mallory was not tired, Lei Mingkai felt tired. Facing Mallory was like facing the nobles of the Britannia Empire. This tug-of-war did not last long. With the accompaniment of the White Cat, State Zero, and the help of the maid named Fanny, Mira quickly finished bathing and changed her clothes and returned to Lei Mingkai's side. It had to be said that Fanny's eyesight was very good. Just a simple dress-up was enough to turn Mira from an ordinary and timid little girl into a noble lady. Of course, this was only in the appearance of the clothes. Yes, Fanny, your eyesight is still as sharp as ever. It's great that Mira can ask you for help. Myra's arrival interrupted the tug-of-war between Mallory and Ray Minkai. Unable to take the initiative in the verbal confrontation, Mallory took the initiative to give up the idea of continuing to entangle with Ray Minkai. Yes, Master, this is what I should do. Also, dinner is ready. I wonder if Master, Sir Ray Minkai, and Miss Mira would like to eat somewhere else? Fanny bowed slightly and said in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. Hearing this, Mallory looked at Ray Minkai, the young man who made him feel troubled. Mira, are you hungry? Ray Minkai tilted his head and looked at Mira, who was hugging the white cat and hiding half of her body beside him. I'm hungry. Mira nodded. Then, Sir Mallory, sorry to disturb. Mallory waved his hand and looked at Fanny. Fanny, let's start dinner. Yes, Master. Perhaps the verbal confrontation before dinner exhausted the old man's mental and physical strength. During the entire dinner, he did not try to pry into Ray Minkai's identity. He even put all his energy on Mira, as if he was doting on his granddaughter who he had not seen for a long time. He constantly asked about her well-being and let Fanny satisfy Myra's request. However, this enthusiasm was defeated by Myra's shyness. Dinner time passed quickly. Ray Minkai and Mira did not agree to Mallory's request to stay and insisted on returning to the city. In desperation, Mallory finally agreed to Ray Minkai's request. Thus, the motorcade consisting of 3 bulletproof cars slowly left the mansion under Mallory's gaze. Seeing the headlights of the motorcade slowly disappear into the dim horizon in the distance, Mallory secretly sighed. Master, why didn't you force the young lady to stay? According to the intelligence, this young lady should be the target of our protection. Old butler Jack stood behind Mallory and asked in confusion. As a loyal old butler, old Jack knew that before Ray Minkai and Mira were invited here, Mallory had made many preparations in this mansion in order to retain and protect Mira at the right time. However, until now, Mallory had no intention of using these preparations, which made the old butler very confused. No, perhaps the current situation was already the best they could hope for. Jack, I need you to do something for me. Yes, Master, please tell me. After returning from the vast plains to the bustling city, Mira had already fallen asleep due to exhaustion. Mira, whose body and mind had yet to fully recover, had already exceeded Lei Minkai's expectations today. Therefore, it was best to let Mira have a good rest now. After settling Mira down, Ray Minkai walked out of the balcony and looked down at the motorcade that was returning along the road in silence. Behind him, there was a series of light footsteps. Kai, why don't you just state your target? That old man should be your current target, isn't he? White Cat State Zero leaped lightly onto the railing and lay down. It subconsciously swung its long tail while talking about what it had noticed during the day. When Mira was taken to the bath by the maid, there were at least 20 soldiers lying in ambush in the house. In addition, there seemed to be a body equipped by this world hidden outside. I have to say, this might be the first big scene we've experienced since coming to this world. No, there shouldn't be only 20 people. State Zero, you missed it. The maid and the old butler are not ordinary people. Ray Minkai narrowed his eyes slightly. White Cat State Zero's intuition was not wrong. The mistake was that it was deceived by the maid and the old butler's seemingly kind and harmless appearance. What? Those 2 people? How is that possible? They're just ordinary people. White Cat State Zero shook its head in disbelief. When there is no threat to Mallory, they are ordinary people. Otherwise, why would Mallory be at ease to be alone with me? You have to know that Mallory has already noticed something. When Lei Minkai swaggered into this city in Australia with Mira, it was tantamount to exposing his existence in the eyes of certain people. This was not a brilliant strategy, but it was the most effective way to lure the snake out of its hole. Moreover, from the results, the success rate was doubled. In Lei Minkai's expectation, it should be the Mithril intelligence personnel who would come knocking on his door. After all, this was Mithril's territory. Under such expectations, an unexpected accident happened that Ray Minkai did not expect. Mallory, who had 2 identities, actually took the initiative to show up. This surprised Ray Minkai at the same time, but it also gave him the next step, taking the initiative to expose his existence, but denying it. Kai, you humans are really tired. State White Cat Zero raised his head and looked at the busy street below under the bustling lights inside. There is no other way. If I take the initiative to reveal my identity as the Queen's Guardian Knight of the Britannia Empire, what do you think the humans of this world will think of me? Lei Minkai shrugged and said with a smile. White Cat State Zero thought for a while and glanced at Ray Minkai. Probably, they will think of you as a lunatic. Exactly. If I take the initiative to reveal my identity, they will think of me as a lunatic. Then, I can only try my best to beat around the bush. Tisk, humans are such laborious creatures. Thank you for the compliment. The next day, Ray Minkai had just woken up, washed up, and was about to wake Mira up when the doorbell rang. Good morning, Your Excellency, Ray Minkai. I am Jack. Under the orders of my master, I am here to deliver an invitation letter to Your Excellency. Old Jack, who was wearing a butler's uniform, respectfully handed over a letter when he saw Ray Minkai open the door. Good morning, Jack. This is? Ray Minkai nodded and asked casually as he took the letter from old Jack's hand. This might be the result of the verbal confrontation yesterday. This is some of my master's thoughts. After knowing that Miss Mira was left with some mental trauma, my master couldn't sleep the whole night. Therefore, he found an authoritative doctor in psychology and asked for some treatment suggestions. Ray Minkai opened the letter and casually scanned the pile of suggestions filled with psychological terms, then set his eyes on the document behind the suggestions. Your Excellency, this is the transfer notice. Transfer notice? Ray Minkai raised his eyebrows and thought, what is Mallory trying to do? Yes, Miss Mira is now at the age of going to school, and according to the psychologist's advice, Miss Mira may be able to gradually recover from her mental trauma through contact with people of the same age. Old Jack slightly lowered his head, his attitude full of respect. Is this Sir Mallory's idea? Ray Minkai raised the document in his hand. This is my master's suggestion. Whether it can be implemented or not, it all depends on Sir Ray Minkai. Old Jack's answer made Ray Minkai very satisfied. Therefore, he nodded. Then, please thank Sir Mallory for me. But I have a request. That is, I must stay by Myra's side. Yes, my master has already made the necessary preparations. As soon as he finished speaking, old Jack took out another envelope from his pocket. This is the arrangement prepared for Sir Ray Minkai. Please take a look. Ray Minkai glanced at the words on the envelope and raised his hand to take it. No need. Thanks Sir Mallory for me. Say that I owe Sir Mallory a favor. Yes, I wish Sir Ray Minkai and Miss Mira a safe journey. Under the light, the words printed on the envelope in Ray Minkai's hand were shining. Doli Jun School's letter of appointment. Chapter 336. The roar of the passenger plane descended from the sky. Accompanied by the screeching sound of brakes, the large passenger plane from Australia slowly landed on the takeoff runway. Ray Minkai and Mira arrived at their destination. Under Mallory's arrangement, the two didn't have to worry. They just took their luggage and left the room. Someone would prepare the documents and expenses needed for the long-distance trip for them. Mira, how do you feel? After glancing at the attendant who moved the luggage into the trunk, Ray Minkai looked back at Mira and asked. This was different from the trip across the ocean when she first met Ray Minkai. This was Myra's first time crossing the ocean with so many strangers. Although the safety of the passenger plane could be guaranteed, Myra's mental state needed to be paid attention to. I'm fine. Fortunately, I have State Zero with me. Mira shook her head and smiled gently. Pets were not allowed to board the passenger plane. However, because the life form of the White Cat State Zero was indeed beyond the knowledge of this world, no matter how strict the security check before boarding was, it was still easily passed by the White Cat State Zero. Therefore, from the takeoff to the landing, no one noticed the White Cat State Zero lying on Myra's shoulder. This was also the reason why Mira was able to maintain a calm mood in a relatively narrow and crowded situation. It's good that you're fine. You can have a good rest after we arrive at the place where we can stay. Okay, maybe Mallory was deliberately probing, or maybe there were other reasons. When Ray Minkai and Mira arrived at the place to settle down, Ray Minkai was surprised to find that from this moment on, the place where they lived was exactly the same as the place in Ray Minkai's memory. The neighborhood where Qin Yao lived. What a bad taste. Sir Mallory. With a flash of inspiration in his mind, Ray Minkai understood Mallory's intention. Whisper. As the manager of the Amalgam and the founder of Mithril, Mallory naturally knew the secret hidden in the depths of the world. The reason why he made such an arrangement. Maybe he wanted to test Ray Minkai's intention? Or perhaps he wanted to see the sparks that would fly when two whispers met. Ray Minkai had guessed all of this. However, that wasn't the most important thing right now. Instead, he wanted to settle the living environment of the place as quickly as possible. He went upstairs and opened the door. Ray Minkai shrugged helplessly. As expected of the man with the biggest shady dealings, he did things flawlessly. The empty house that Ray Minkai had envisioned had turned into an exquisitely decorated, fully furnished house. TSK. We were defeated by the general. Ray Minkai pursed his lips, but he carried the luggage into the house with a clear conscience and let Mira choose her own room. Sir Lay, these are some of Sir Knight's kind intentions. I hope Miss Mira can smile more in the future. The attendant who brought Ray Minkai and Mira here left behind a check before he left. Looking at the string of zeros on the check, Ray Minkai couldn't help but be surprised. No wonder he could establish Mithril. It turns out that Mallory is really a super rich man. At this moment, the door behind him opened. It was Mira. Her little face showed a trace of doubt, as if she didn't know which room she should choose. Ray Minkai just smiled at this. From today onwards, Mira, you have to call me brother or teacher. Time rotated again. The sun set and the moon rose. The moon set and the sun rose. When the first ray of light appeared in the sky, shadows began to appear on the street. Minkai, it's time. White Cat State Zero, who was lying on the balcony, raised its head slightly and looked at the white sky. Okay, Ray Minkai's work and rest were very standard, except for participating in battles. Even if the White Cat State Zero didn't say anything, Ray Minkai had already woken up and was ready. And what Ray Minkai had to do now was to prepare a lunchbox for Mira. Yes, that's right. From today onwards, Mira would be a member of Duli Jundai High School as a foreign transfer student. At the same time, Ray Minkai would work in Duli Jundai High School as a foreign teacher. Of course, these two identities were just a cover. The main purpose was for other reasons. After Ray Minkai entered the kitchen, a trace of delicious aroma quickly floated out. White Cat State Zero, who was lying on the balcony, sniffed and looked back at the kitchen. Minkai, do you want to go say hello? No need. Do you want to have a piece of fried meat? State Zero. Ray Minkai's voice was heard in the midst of the splashing sound of hot oil. TSK. Who wants to eat? White Cat State Zero snorted and looked back at the street not far away. A strand of fresh air with a peculiar smell drifted over from the other side. And in the sky over there, a few birds were chirping and circling around. Sneaky guy. White Cat State Zero stared for a while, got up, jumped down from the balcony, and walked slowly into the kitchen with small steps. Hey, State Zero, didn't you say you didn't want it? Shut up. I'm just temporarily hungry. White Cat State Zero fiercely bit the piece of fried meat that had just come out of the oven and snorted coldly. If it wasn't for the fact that after recovering that piece of world fragment, this body had to eat for a period of time to maintain its life. Do you think I would eat these things? Looking at the White Cat State Zero wolfing down the food, Ray Minkai rolled his eyes and continued what he was doing. Half an hour later, when Ray Minkai had just finished preparing the lunchbox, Mira had also changed into Duli Jundai High School's uniform. Mira, who had her long red hair tied into a high ponytail and had changed into a clean and fitting uniform, looked much more energetic. At first glance, she was not much different from an ordinary female high school student, as long as Mira's complexion was slightly better. But this was not the problem. Mira, who had escaped from suffering, would eventually return to the life of a normal girl. Even though this point was said, even Ray Minkai himself did not believe it. As a member of the Whisperers, from a moment of birth, the fate of the future had already been decided. Okay, Mira, this is your lunchbox. You could take it out to eat at noon. Mira, who reached out to take the lunchbox from Ray Minkai's hand, moved her lips, but nodded vigorously. And that lunchbox, under the influence of her subconscious, was tightly hugged into her arms. The sun slowly rose. Ray Minkai and Mira naturally did not need to learn from Chidori to squeeze into the tram. As usual, their trips were all covered by Mallory. In a sense, the current Ray Minkai was as happy as enjoying a luxurious travel meal funded by others. The daily life of Do Lijun High School was the same as usual. The students held their school bags and stood outside the school gates. They were being inspected by the smiling but extremely strict female teachers. There was also the Qin Yao, who wanted to catch his friend and scold him as soon as he opened his mouth. There was also a gentleman who was hiding at the side and watching the image of the goddess in his heart collapse. In the end, there was also an accident when a female teacher grabbed a submachine gun from her bag the moment she walked into the school. She was wearing the uniform of a Meidai High School. All of this was interrupted by a car that slowly drove over from afar. As the car door opened, a young man with an elegant temperament and a kind smile on his face, and a young girl wearing a high school uniform with her red hair tied into a high ponytail, walked out of the car and attracted everyone's attention. At this moment, the female teacher and the female student's attention was taken away by the elegant young man. The male student's attention was taken away by the red-haired woman following behind the young man. Amidst the sudden silence, there were two men whose expressions changed drastically. One was a youth who was found to be carrying a gun by a female teacher. The other one was sitting in the dark and narrow cockpit. He was shocked as he looked at the red-haired girl's slightly pale but delicate face that had been magnified several times. Not long after, the man opened his mouth and immediately opened the communication. Yours. 6 calling yours. 2 yours. 6 calling yours. 2. Emergency. Emergency. Yours. 2 received a call. What's going on? An attack? A woman's voice sounded from the communication device. No, it should be more serious than that. Sister Mao, our lost princess has reappeared. In the dim cockpit, an incredulous voice sounded. What? Yours. 6. Speak clearly. What princess? Cruz, are you joking? The female voice called Sister Mao sounded impatient, as if she did not believe what the man said. I'm serious. I'm sending back the images I saw. Yours. 6. Perhaps we must contact the son of the pill slave immediately. As Cruz spoke, he quickly sent the images captured by the M9 he was driving back to Sister Mao, which was also Melissa Mao's stronghold. As expected, when Melissa saw the image that Cruz sent back, she jumped up from her stool on the spot. How is this possible? There's actually a target who walked right into the trap? As soon as this thought appeared, it was immediately rejected by Melissa. As an experienced fighter, Melissa would never be so naive to think that such a stupid enemy would appear. Then, the current situation had already exceeded the ability of the guard team she led. The rest could only be decided by the son of the pill slave at the back. Yours. 2 calling yours. 6 yours. 7. Before the latest order is given, our first task is to protect Qinyao. Other than that, let's put that princess aside for the time being, as long as she and the people standing behind her don't attack Qinyao. Yours. 6 received. Yours. 7 received. After receiving confirmation from the 2 team members, Melissa couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. She was really afraid that these 2 fellows would suddenly become hot-blooded and try to take back the princess they had lost. Let's leave the rest to the son of the pill slave to make the decision. As Melissa sent out a call through a secret channel, the son of the pill slave somewhere in the Pacific Ocean also received the news about the princess who had been taken away. In the spacious bridge, a group of bridge technicians were performing routine combat preparations according to the schedule. In the center of the bridge, In the position defined as the captain's seat sat a petite girl with long, beautiful, and smooth silver hair tied into a braid. Her eyes flashed with a cunning light from time to time. She was the captain of the Mithril Atlantic Fleet's strongest assault submarine, Danu's son, Teresa Testalosa. On the left and right sides of the girl stood two middle-aged men with serious expressions and tall postures. They were Richard Meducas, who was strict, and Andrei Sergeyevich Kalinin, who was the commander of the Western Pacific Squadron of the Mithril Combat Forces. The target we once lost has appeared. Moreover, it has appeared in the school where the target we want to protect, Qinyao, is located. Major Kalinin, what do you think we should do to deal with this matter? As the captain of the son of the Pill Slave, the silver-haired girl subconsciously reached out and stirred the end of her braid as she asked. As long as one was familiar with this young girl who had become the captain of the son of the Pill Slave at such a young age, they would know that this was a small action that the young girl showed when she was deep in thought. Yes. Sir Colonel, I think what yours too is doing now is right. Although the target we once lost has appeared in front of us, we still know nothing about the mastermind behind the scenes who took the target away. Under such circumstances, if we rashly carry out rescue work on the target, it might cause unnecessary trouble and cause the mission of protecting Qinyao to encounter an accident. The man with a mustache and a head full of white hair combed back said in a deep voice, "Is that so?" "Indeed. We still can't figure out how the target was taken away. According to the investigation of the scene after the event, other than the traces of the tires and the armed helicopters scattered everywhere, there was only the footprint left by the body that looked similar to A.S. The silver braid continued to rotate under the stirring of his fingers, drawing traces in the air. The owner of the braid fell into deeper thought. Indeed, we don't know anything other than the fact that the target was taken away. We can't figure out how the enemy took the target away, because less than a few minutes after the battle ended, our M9 had already entered the battlefield. In such a short period of time, even our M9 couldn't leave the battlefield quickly. No, maybe there's a way. Captain, just now, a piece of information came from the headquarters. Perhaps it will help you in your thinking. At this time, the middle-aged man standing on Teresa's right wearing a hat with the name of the ship printed on it, HMS Time 87, slowly opened his mouth and handed a document he just received to Teresa. This is? Teresa took the document and opened it, and a photo was reflected in her pupils. The thing that appeared in the photo was the back of a humanoid body that looked like it was painted in white. It had a body that was different from ass. What made Teresa unable to move her eyes away was the pair of fluorescent green wings that extended from the back of the white body to both sides. Light's wings? Flying? As soon as she saw this photo, coupled with Richard's hint, Teresa instantly figured out why the target could be taken away in just a few minutes without anyone noticing. It turned out that the body that took the person away did not intend to retreat by land, but decided to evacuate by air from the beginning. The moment she came up with this speculation, Teresa's clever little head immediately speculated countless possibilities. Among these possibilities, there was a possibility that worried Teresa. Although this photo only captured the back of the mysterious body, the pair of wings of light that spread out was enough to explain a lot of things. Especially in the eyes of Teresa, who personally designed the son of Dan's slave. The technology contained in this white body that only revealed its back might be different from AS, or even completely opposite technology. Especially that pair of wings of light. Major, I've decided. Inform Melissa that while ensuring that the escort mission for Qinyao can be carried out, try to contact the target and the forces behind him as much as possible. However, we must carry out related activities under the premise that we do not actively expose the existence of Mithril. Yes, Sir Colonel. Now I'll pass down the order. I'm counting on you, Kalinin. Also, I hope you can apologize to Melissa and the others for me. Teresa nodded and then showed an apologetic smile. No, Sir Colonel. Yours too, they are soldiers. These accidents are just common occurrences for them. Yours 7 is the same. Chapter 337. In the classroom, a boy and a girl were standing next to Megumi Kagarizaka, quietly receiving the attention of the entire class. Today was the day that Do Lizhan welcomed a new classmate on behalf of Year 2 Class 4. Moreover, it was a pair. However, when the boy and girl appeared, the entire class immediately showed signs of polarization. However, this was normal. After all, when faced with a strange and beautiful girl of the opposite sex, the young boys and girls would always be attracted to her. Especially when there was a pure white cat lying on the girl's shoulder, most of the girls, like the other boys, were unable to move their eyes away. Cough, cough. Everyone, please be quiet. Today is the day that our class welcomes a new classmate. If anyone has any questions, you can ask them later. Now, let's have a new classmate introduce himself. Megumi Kagarizaka glanced at the entire class and immediately began to have the new classmate introduce himself. I am Sergeant Sosuke Sagara. Please give me your guidance. What Megumi Kagarizaka didn't expect was that the boy standing next to her would say something that made her extremely speechless and caused the entire class to erupt into an uproar. What does that mean? Some of the boys even imitated his tone and shouted strangely. Quiet, quiet. Sosuke Sagara, please don't make too many self-introductions. This is a school, not a playground. Megumi Kagarizaka suddenly felt that today was probably her bad luck. Why did she encounter such a transfer student? Yes, I am Sosuke Sagara. Please give me your guidance. Fortunately, this seemingly difficult-to-deal-with male classmate was unexpectedly obedient, which made Megumi Kagarizaka temporarily relieved. After a series of messy self-introductions, it was finally time for the female transfer student, who was slightly in the limelight, to introduce herself. As the entire classroom quieted down, the female transfer student with a high ponytail revealed a slight smile. I am Rayla. After pausing for a moment, a hint of hesitation appeared on her face, but it quickly disappeared. I am Rayla. Please give me your guidance in the future. Rayla? Lay? Where is this surname from? It's very rare. The female transfer student's self-introduction once again caused the classroom to become noisy. Everyone was discussing her surname. Quiet. Silence. This is very impolite. At the same time, Ramilla came from Britain to settle here. Lay, this surname may be a local surname. This is not surprising. Megumi Kagarizaka slapped the table to silence everyone. She then turned around to look at Mira with an encouraging smile. All right, Student Lay could continue with his self-introduction. Everyone is just curious about your name. I don't mean any harm. Compared to Susuke Sagara, who always carried a model gun in class, Kagarizaka liked Mira more because of her delicate appearance. Especially before class, when the principal called her to the office and told her about Mira, Kiri Kagarizaka's maternal instincts were completely triggered by Mira's background. Poor Mira. Who would have thought that she would suffer such a hellish disaster at the age when she should be blooming like a beautiful flower? As Eri Kagarizaka recalled the principal's instructions, the students shifted their attention from Mira's surname to the white kitten lying on his shoulder. As everyone knew, the school did not allow any pets to be brought into the classroom. Under this common knowledge, there was a student who could bring a kitten into the classroom. How could this not surprise everyone? Quiet, quiet, quiet. Because of this, Kagarizaka had no choice but to slam the table again to silence everyone. Then, she began to explain why Mira could bring a kitten into the classroom. Due to certain reasons, Mira was specially allowed to bring this State Zero Sama. Mira added. At the same time, the kitten lying on Mira's shoulder actually waved its small paw as a form of greeting. In an instant, almost everyone in the class was stunned by the kitten's intelligence. And so, the situation went out of control again. Sure enough, it's a disaster day. Amid Eri Kagarizaka's wails, the class began. At the same time, Ray Minkai walked out of the principal's office. At this time, he had just completed the registration process. Because of this, Ray Minkai had no choice but to let Mira, accompanied by the white cat State Zero, go to class first. With State Zero's protection, Rei Minkai did not have to worry about Myra's safety. The only thing Rei Minkai was worried about was Myra's mental state. However, he did not have to worry too much. The only thing he had to worry about was a certain brainless fellow who had not completely changed his mindset from the battlefield. Bang! Suddenly, a loud sound came from the teaching building on the left. Rei Minkai frowned and turned around to look, only to see a column of smoke slowly flying out from the shattered window. Could it be Sagara Sosuke's doing? Lei-sensei, what happened? This huge commotion even alarmed the principal who was sitting in the office. He abruptly pushed open the office door, grabbed Rei Minkai, and questioned him. Something must have happened. Principal, you don't have to worry. I'll go take a look. It was strange. After Rei Minkai showed his swift and decisive attitude, the principal actually calmed down. He watched as Rei Minkai quickly passed through the corridor and walked towards the smoke-filled classroom. From now on, Meijindai High School will not be peaceful. Until Rei Minkai's figure disappeared in the corridor, the principal shook his head and helplessly turned around to return to the office. Rei Minkai did not know about this scene. Even if he knew, Rei Minkai would not care. As one of the main stages of the entire world, Jindai High School was unable to escape from this whirlpool. Therefore, the principal could only pray for his own good fortune. Boom! Suddenly, a shockwave blasted open the door of a classroom in the corridor. At the same time, thick smoke spread out from inside. Be careful! The sharp-eyed Rei Minkai immediately saw a figure struggling to rush out from the smoke. Rei Minkai immediately extended a helping hand without hesitation. Cough! Cough, cough! Cough, cough! Thank you! With Rei Minkai's help, that person finally stabilized her body in the midst of coughing. But when she raised her head and saw Rei Minkai, who extended a helping hand to her, she immediately exclaimed, "Oh, you're that new sensei?" Rei Minkai slightly nodded his head. "Nice to meet you. I am Rei Minkai. You must be 2-year Class 4's Eri Kagarizaka sensei. It seems that 2-year Class 4 is very lively today." Rei Minkai's words made Eri Kagarizaka stunned for a moment. She immediately stood up straight and shouted loudly, "Not good. Just now when we were in class, there was suddenly a loud noise, followed by choking smoke. I don't know how the students are doing." As she spoke, Eri Kagarizaka did not even think and turned around to rush into the smoke, but she was stopped by Rei Minkai. "Wait, Kagarizaka-sensei, just leave these things to me. You should hurry and call for help. Remember to bring as much water as possible." Rei Minkai said as he patted Eri Kagarizaka's shoulder and rushed into the smoke without hesitation, leaving behind a rather reliable back view for Eri Kagarizaka. This new sensei seems to be very reliable. As if he is a knight. After being stunned for a moment, Eri Kagarizaka immediately woke up. "Not good. I need to hurry and call for help." In the thick smoke, Rei Minkai walked slowly with a cautious expression. Although the smoke had a strange pungent smell, it did not cause any harm to Rei Minkai. The only thing that hindered Rei Minkai was the somewhat bad sight. "State 0, where are you?" Rei Minkai's spirit started to become active and called out to the white cat State 0. In the corner. "Hey, that human kid is really one-track minded. Just a trace of murderous intent, and that human kid jumped up on the spot and threw smoke bombs everywhere." The white cat State 0's disdainful voice sounded in Rei Minkai's mind and explained the source of the loud noise. As it turned out, after the first class, the cute and beautiful Mira naturally attracted a lot of students to talk to her. At this moment, the male transfer student named Sagara Sosuke hid in the corner and fiddled around for a while, then went to Myra's table and tried to talk to her. However, because Sagara Sosuke's way of talking was too hardcore, Mira did not want to pay too much attention to him. She just hurriedly said a few words, and that was it. However, Sagara Sosuke could not get rid of her. Hence, Sagara Sosuke used another method, but it was also a hardcore way of talking to Mira. For example, "Miss Mira, are you being threatened? Don't worry, we will protect you. We will provide you with a safe and stable living environment," and so on. with such a hardcore way of talking, not to mention Mira herself, even Qian Yao, who was sitting at the side, could not stand it anymore. Wait, what are you trying to do? Even if you're a military nerd, you won't be so obsessed that you can't tell the situation, right? This is Japan. This is a regeneration high school. This is a peaceful country. This is a peaceful city. No one will be threatened. You are called Sagara Sosuke, right? If you want to play a military game, please go home and play. This is a school. It is not a place to play. Unexpectedly, when Mira was being pestered by Sagara Sosuke, Qian Yao was about to explode. No, I do not mean to interfere with your lives. Please believe me, I will not hurt Qian Yao and Mira. Moreover, my comrades and I will be the ones to protect you. Please believe me. Sagara Sosuke's explanation was indeed true. However, because this guy's way of talking was too hardcore, everyone, including Qian Yao, immediately labeled Sagara Sosuke as a hardcore nerd who is heavily addicted to military games. Thus, Qian Yao's explosion, Sagara Sosuke's hardcore communication, and the surrounding crowd's rowdy onlookers immediately angered the white cat State Zero, who was lying on the table. Kacha! Suddenly, Sagara Sosuke's body trembled. An enormous and terrifying, bone-chilling pressure suddenly fell from the sky and pressed down on Sagara Sosuke's body. Sniper? Not good. Sagara Sosuke, who realized something, did not say anything else. As he fell forward, he took out a smoke bomb from under his clothes. Bang! With a loud sound, the entire classroom and Kagurazaka, who was preparing for class, were shrouded in thick smoke. This was the entire process of the farce that happened before. After figuring out the reason, Rei Minkai helplessly shook his head. As expected of Sagara Sosuke, I didn't expect him to start causing trouble so quickly. Where's Mira? Is she beside you? State Zero. Yes, she's with me, but there's some trouble in front of me. Although White Cat State Zero said that it was troublesome, Rei Minkai felt that White Cat State Zero seemed to have encountered something fun. In the billowing smoke, Mira was still sitting obediently on the chair, while White Cat State Zero was squatting on the table in front of Mira, looking forward. A layer of invisible circular light shield isolated the surrounding smoke, allowing Mira to avoid the suffocation of the smoke. At the same time, a certain person wearing a chemical mask and hiding in the smoke noticed the situation here. Mira, stay here obediently. Kai, I'll be there soon. Yes, I will. State Zero Sama. Mira nodded obediently. Then, White Cat State Zero's mouth slightly curved and jumped to the ground. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared in the thick smoke. Kid, this is a lesson for disturbing me. The white, ghostly figure quickly shuttled back and forth between the billowing smoke and the surrounding tables and chairs. The next moment, a flash of light suddenly broke through the smoke, swept out from the right, and went straight for the mask on Sagara Sosuke's face. But it was dodged by Sagara Sosuke. Oh, you dodged pretty fast. Then let's continue. Amidst the billowing smoke, State White Cat Zero disappeared once again. Who's there? White Cat State Zero's movements were very fast, so fast that Sagara Sosuke could only rely on his instinct to dodge the White Cat's attack. Other than that, Sagara Sosuke could not see the appearance of White Cat State Zero. In the next second, just as Sagara Sosuke was cautiously observing the surrounding situation, a white flash once again flew by from the right. But this time, Sagara Sosuke did not have time to dodge, and could only quickly pull out a dagger from his waist and stab in the direction he sensed. Pa! At the same time, Sagara Sosuke's protective mask was torn off by White Cat State Zero's sharp claws. In an instant, the pungent smoke made it difficult for Sagara Sosuke to breathe. His eyes were sore, and tears were about to fall from his eyes. But this was not important. What was important was that Sagara Sosuke was surprised to find that the dagger in his hand was tightly caught by a strong and powerful hand. Sagara Sosuke, you caused such a big commotion on the first day of school. How much do you hate the peaceful school life? So much so that you do not hesitate to risk being sentenced to prison to brandish such a dangerous weapon in class. In the gradually dissipating smoke, a black-haired man in a suit was tightly suppressing Sagara Sosuke's right hand. At the same time, Myra's white cat was sitting on his shoulder, slowly licking its paws. What shocked Sagara Sosuke even more was that when Mira, who was sitting obediently on the chair, saw the black-haired man, she called out softly, "Brother." Chapter 338. Brother. When he heard Myra's name, Sosuke, Xiangliang's eyes suddenly showed a hint of seriousness. Although he was already prepared for the possibility of Mira being kidnapped, he did not expect the mastermind to appear in front of him so quickly and in such a way. However, the gradual tightening of his hand made Sosuke Xiangliang subconsciously make the decision to retreat for the time being. "No, it's just an accident." Sosuke Xiangliang, who made the decision, found an excuse that it was an accident, but because his acting was too clumsy, this reason was not very credible. However, the young man standing in front of him, who was called brother by Mira, did not intend to pursue the matter. He just used a little strength and took the dagger from Sosuke Xiangliang's hand. After looking at it in front of his eyes, he looked at Sosuke Xiangliang again. "Student Sosuke Xiangliang is not allowed to bring such a dangerous item into the campus without permission. Today is my first day of work, so I won't make a fuss about it. I hope student Sosuke Xiangliang will remember this lesson in the future." After taking away Sosuke Xiangliang's dagger, Rei Minkai turned his right hand and put away the dagger. He looked back at Mira, who was still sitting obediently in her seat. "Mira, are you okay?" Mira shook her head slightly. "Thanks to State Zero-sama. That's good." At this moment, there was a commotion outside the door. Obviously, Kagarizaka-sensei had found reinforcements. It was time for the chaos to come to an end. Time continued to move forward. Even when all the students in Class 2 to 4 were still trembling from the chaos caused by Sosuke Xiangliang, it was time for the class to end. Now it was time for the club activities. However, before the club's activities were fully carried out, there was still a bit of free time left. The students of Class 2, Class 4 gathered together and exchanged their views on the young man who had suddenly appeared in the classroom during the commotion and subdued Xiang Liang's Zongjia. Among these people, Tokapan Kyoko and Chidori were part of this group. "I say, little Chidori, today our class is very lively," Tokapan Kyoko said as she took out the uniform of the girls' softball team from the closet. She took off her glasses and was ready to change. "N, is there?" It was just a military maniac. "Sigh, it's all thanks to his existence that the classroom has become like this." Qin Yao held the team uniform in his hand and couldn't help but sigh. Because of the chaos caused by Sosuke Xiangliang, all of the students of Class 2, Class 4 were lucky enough to line up in front of the school doctor's office for half a day to get their bodies checked, so as to avoid any residual effects from the riot. "Really? Don't I think this is pretty good? After all, I could take a lot of fun photos." Tokapan Kyoko put on the team uniform and tidied it up. Then, she took out her favorite photo from the cabinet and snapped the shutter at Kobayashi. "Go, go, go." What was so good about that? It was her first day of transferring to another school, and she had already caused such a ruckus. "I'm afraid our second grade class won't be peaceful anymore." Qin Yao waved his hand in disdain. "Really? Hee hee. Speaking of which, Xiao Yao, what do you think of Mira? Although she looks very obedient, I didn't expect the school to allow her to bring a kitten into the school." Speaking of Myra's white cat, Tokapan Kyoko couldn't help but get excited. Xiao Yao, isn't that little white cat cute? Moreover, it looks very spiritual." Kazumi and Iori tried to communicate with the little white cat, and it could understand Kazumi and the others. "Well, it seems like its name is State Zero." Listening to his friend's chatter, Qin Yao helplessly smiled. Military maniac, white cat, obedient female transfer student, and the young man who looked elegant, with a noble aura in his every move. These sudden changes made Qin Yao feel helpless, and he subconsciously felt that the days ahead would not become peaceful. Xiao Yao, what are you thinking? The next moment, his friend's call woke Qin Yao up from his thoughts. Looking at his friend who was sizing him up, Qin Yao quickly changed into his team uniform and asked, "How? Kyoko, it's really strange. I rarely see you in a daze like this." Tokapan Kyoko looked at Qin Yao in confusion. But soon, Tokapan Kyoko's attention turned to another topic, but it was still a topic that Qin Yao didn't know how to answer. "Xiao Yao, what do you think of the new English teacher?" Although I didn't have much interaction with the new teacher except for class, I heard from the girls in other classes that the new teacher in our class's transfer student, Ramilla, are siblings. Siblings? Qin Yao was stunned. She really didn't know about this. She only found out after Tokapan Kyoko mentioned it. In the end, it was because of the riot. If it wasn't for that, Qin Yao would have only cared about bringing Tokapan Kyoko and his classmates out of the classroom. He would have probably heard the short exchange between Rei Minkai and Sagara Sosuke. Yes, they don't look like two people, but they're actually siblings. Also, I heard a piece of news that I don't know if it's true or not. Tokapan Kyoko fiddled with his camera and said mysteriously, "News?" At this point, Qin Yao didn't want to interrupt his good friend. That's right. It is said that Mira was taken to a mysterious research institute when he was young. There, Mira suffered some cruel human experiments, causing Mira to be left with great mental trauma. Tokapan Kyoko's words immediately made Qin Yao wave his hands. "Hey, Kyoko, even if you're curious as to why Mira was able to bring the little pet in, you don't have to make up such a lie, right? This kind of plot only exists in TV dramas. It doesn't exist in reality." Qin Yao didn't believe that Tokapan Kyoko didn't know where he heard this from. Fake. Being said like this by Chidori, Tokapan Kyoko revealed a surprised expression. Fake. Fake. All right, let's go out. There's not much time left. Oh, Qin Yao, who had extinguished the flames of gossip in her friend's heart, did not know that due to the intervention of Rei Minkai and Mira, she did not suffer the protection of Xiang Liang Soji, which was close to harassment. This was because Xiang Liang Soji was currently guarding the vicinity of Qin Yao, secretly protecting Qin Yao while talking to Melissa and Kurlutz, who were staying in the stronghold. Yours too. The target has been confirmed. It's Mira, who he once lost. Moreover, when I came into contact with Mira, a man suspected of taking Mira away also appeared. Mira, call him Big Brother, and that man's current identity is a new teacher of the Array Generation High School. Received. Yours 7. He is currently in contact with the son of a dance slave. In addition, yours 7, your current mission is to protect Qin Yao. As for Myra's matter, leave it to us. Melissa's decision remained unchanged. She still insisted on continuing to protect Qin Yao as her primary mission. Yes, yours 7 received. Xiang Liang Soji did not object to this. Previously, in that brief exchange, Xiang Liang Soji knew that the man called Big Brother by Mira was definitely not an easy opponent to deal with. Before figuring out the other party's information, the cautious Xiang Liang Soji naturally would not take the risk to provoke this unknown opponent. What a pity. Soji, I was unable to rescue our lost Princess Highness in the first place. At the end of the emergency communication, Kurlutz, who had remained silent, also teased Xiang Liang Soji about the mess he had just caused. One must know that even if Kurlutz drove the M9 with the ECS system turned on and hid not far away, he could still clearly see the mess Xiang Liang Soji had just caused through electronic eyes. Yours 6. Just now, did you find any traces of a sniper nearby? When it came to the chaos just now, Xiang Liang Soji immediately remembered the murderous intent he had felt before. Sniper? Kurlutz froze for a moment, then denied this. Impossible. My current position is the best place to snipe. No matter where it is, I can see it clearly. So, I can guarantee that there was no sniper just now. How is that possible? Xiang Liang Soji naturally believed Kurlutz's words. However, the murderous aura that he felt earlier was real. Otherwise, why would he do something that ordinary people would think was extreme? However, No matter how hard Xiang Liang Soji thought, he would never have thought that the murderous intent was actually caused by the little white cat lying on the table. Xiang Liang Soji, who was troubled by not knowing the source of the murderous intent, was put aside. At this moment, Rei Minkai had just entrusted Mira to Tera Takako, who was also a teacher from Shinsei High School, when Kagurazuka-sensei came to find him. That Ri-sensei, the principal has something to talk to you about. Okay, I know. Rei Minkai nodded and turned to look at Mira, who was holding the white cat state 0 and standing next to Tera Takako. Mira, you should first follow Tera-sensei to familiarize yourself with the school environment. We will meet later. Also, Tera-sensei, please. Okay, brother. Leave it to me. I will take good care of Mira, classmate. After watching the enthusiastic Tera Takako take Mira away, Rei Minkai turned around and showed a smile that was just right. Sorry, Kagurazuka-sensei. Sorry to keep you waiting. Now, Rei Minkai was playing the role of a foreign teacher who came from Britain to Japan. On the resume that Mallory had prepared for him, it was written like this. For example, since childhood, Rei Minkai grew up as the adopted son of a local aristocrat. After receiving an excellent education, Rei Minkai often traveled around the world after growing up, and so on. Therefore, in order to perform this resume perfectly, Rei Minkai had to use some etiquette knowledge that he had learned in the Imperial Royal Knight Academy. Therefore, in the eyes of Kagurazuka and the other students, Rei Minkai, this new teacher, was like a knight who walked out of a fairy tale. He was as elegant and steady as a knight who walked out of a fairy tale, inadvertently making the people around him subconsciously trust him. No, Rain-sensei can take care of things first, and then go see the principal. The principal also told me that whenever Rain-sensei is free, I can go see him. Looking at Rei Minkai's smile, Kagurazuka, who almost indulged in it, shook her head and forced herself to become sober. Is that so? Then, I will go see the principal now. Thank you, Kagurazuka-sensei. After Rei Minkai nodded, he walked around Kagurazuka and went to the principal's office alone. Wait, Rain-sensei. Before Rei Minkai walked a few steps, he was stopped by Kagurazuka. Is there anything else? Kagurazuka-sensei. Rei Minkai turned around and looked at Kagurazuka. That. I heard that Mira-san seemed to have suffered some inhumane treatment, right? Just as the words were about to come out of her mouth, Eri Kagurazuka realized that she had said something completely different. Yes, but I hope that Kagurazuka-sensei will not mention this in front of Mira-san. Rei Minkai admitted it directly, but at the same time, he gave Kagurazuka a warning. I'm very sorry. I did not mean to offend you. It's just that these rumors have already spread among the students. Kagurazuka was shocked and apologized repeatedly. Is that so? I know. Thank you for your reminder, Kagurazuka-sensei. Leave the rest to me. This might be an accident. This might be Rei Minkai's negligence. He did not expect that in just half a day, there would be so many rumors about Mira, especially the rumors about the white cat snacks. He did not expect that these random guesses would unintentionally hit the nail on the head. Should I do something about it? White Cat State Zero's voice sounded in Rei Minkai's mind. No, let's leave it at that. Let's put this matter aside for now. When the time is right, these bored students will naturally stop. Thinking about the big incident that was about to happen not long ago, Rei Minkai did not care much about this matter. Moreover, there was White Cat State Zero by Mira's side. Even if there were some students who acted out of line and wanted to get close to Mira, they would have to consider whether their heads could withstand the White Cat Zero's claws. Then do as you wish. Also, Kai, that reckless soldier seems to have diverted some of his attention. White Cat State Zero changed the topic and pulled the topic to Sagara Sosuke. Yes, I know. Now, their goal is to protect Chidori. Therefore, our existence is just an uncontrollable accident to them. In order to not let us affect the safety of Chidori, Sagara Sosuke and the others will naturally ignore our existence. In that case, if they don't provoke us, we won't provoke them. White Cat State Zero seemed a little disappointed. For now, yes. Wait for a few more days. Naturally, there will be time for you to move around. The first day of school passed peacefully, just like that. The next step was to wait for the appearance of that person. Extreme emotions, thoughts. 9 dragons. Let me see if you are a singularity or not. Chapter 339. Deep Sea. A huge shadow was quietly moving in the vast ocean, and the most threatening weapon on its body was constantly being tested. With the help of satellites cruising in space, it slowly locked onto a certain research institute located in the barren and cold ice field. Looks like it's going to be hard. In this huge shadow, Teresa, who had single-handedly designed the son of Dan's slave, was sitting on her captain's seat and slowly reading the mission reports sent back by Melissa. Although the things written in the report were a bit interesting, Teresa clearly understood that this mission might be an extremely difficult mission for Sagara Sosuke. However, Kalinin, who was standing next to Teresa, had a different opinion about this problem. For him, this might be a good experience mission. Teresa's eyes slowly wandered through the words. Is it? His weapon was confiscated, and he was suppressed by civilians without weapons. And if we were to say that this is the embodiment of having a good social experience, then the following. Teresa's voice paused, and a trace of seriousness appeared on her small face. Because in the following report, it was about Rei Minkai and Mira. After the first class, Sergeant Sagara Sosuke came into contact with Mira based on the idea of probing. During this period, due to Sergeant Sagara Sosuke's clumsy performance, it caused Mira to have a suspected dislike of him. At the same time, Sergeant Sagara Sosuke suddenly threw a smoke bomb, causing a riot. Then, during the riot, he came into contact with the mastermind behind the scenes who controlled Myra's freedom. Seeing this, Teresa raised her head and looked at Kalinin, who was standing next to her. Major, what do you think of this matter? Kalinin pondered for a while, then said the conclusion he had made long ago. Sir Colonel, in fact, this contact was not a dangerous one. On the contrary, I personally think that maybe this was a friendly contact to some extent. When Teresa heard the word friendly mentioned by Kalinin, she frowned slightly. She knew that although the report didn't clearly state what happened when the two sides came into contact, based on her understanding of Xiangliang Sosuke, this contact might have happened during a battle. Under such circumstances, could the word friendly still be used to describe them? Kalinin also noticed Teresa's doubts, which was why he explained his reasons. Colonel, perhaps you will think that I have misused my words. But in fact, I personally think that this is the most appropriate word we can use right now. Kalinin paused for a moment before continuing. Sergeant Sosuke Xiangliang is an expert among experts. No matter what mission he was faced with, he would always approach it with a cautious attitude. Therefore, when he encounters resistance, he will usually adopt the most appropriate strategy to carry out the mission. Hearing Kalinin's explanation, Teresa seemed to understand. Major, you mean to say that the person Sergeant Sagamiya encountered is an enemy that Sergeant Sagamiya is currently unable to defeat? I'm afraid so. Kalina nodded and reminded Teresa to look at the end of the report. Teresa did as she was told. According to Sergeant Sagamiya's account, the culprit behind the smoke bomb was most likely a sniper lurking in the dark. And this sniper evaded Cruz Wilba's surveillance, thus threatening Sergeant Xiangliang Sosuke and even threatening the life of the target, Qin Yao. After reading this paragraph, Teresa slowly exhaled. It's really difficult. Major, maybe we're facing a new force that we have never discovered. The probability is very high. Colonel, Kalinin also expressed his approval of Teresa's speculation. After all, with the activity of Mithril, many forces hidden in the dark side of the world gradually surfaced. In Kalinin's view, the force that took Mira away was probably one of these forces. At this time, a serious and calm voice sounded. I also agree with this. Captain, this is the latest information from our intelligence personnel. Please take a look. Richard, you received the information about Mira? Teresa saw Richard's appearance and immediately smiled. At the same time, She took the intelligence document from Richard's hand. The next moment, Teresa, who opened the document, saw the photo clipped to the title page of the document at a glance. In the photo, a young girl was surrounded by many clothing salespeople, and she was constantly picking out clothes. Moreover, the sharp-eyed Teresa immediately saw the figure that appeared at the edge of the photo. It was a young man with a gentle smile on his face. "This is Mira and the man who took her away?" Teresa raised her head and looked at Richard. "It's very likely. According to the investigation of intelligence personnel, not long ago, this man and woman appeared in a city in Australia and stayed there for several days. On the way, this man also took the target to the commercial district to buy clothes. This is the source of this photo." Richard nodded his head and explained the source of the photo to him. After Kalinin heard this, he fell into deep thought and said, "That's right. If this information is correct, then it means that the target has not been persecuted or treated inhumanely. On the contrary, the man who took him away took good care of the target." Speaking of this, Kalinin slowly took a breath and spoke of his latest speculation. "Sir Colonel, I personally think that this man should already know part of the Whisperer's secrets, and under this premise, he came to the Array Generation High School and tried to make contact with Qin Yao. Is that so? If that's the case, we have to be careful." Teresa looked at Richard. "Captain, I think Major Kalinin's speculation is reasonable, but under this premise, I have some different opinions. Given the current situation of the target, I think we may reach a settlement with the forces behind the scenes that took the target away." Reconciliation? Teresa was taken aback, as if she didn't expect this. "Yes, Captain, we are very clear about the uniqueness of the Whisperer. However, during the time that we Mithril were involved in the dispute, all we saw and collected were attempts to possess the power of the Whisperer, but we also took extreme measures to target the Whisperer and suppress the Whisperer. Therefore, in the case of discovering a new force that can treat the Whisperer well, I feel that it is necessary to try to make conservative contact with it." Richard's opinion caused Teresa to fall into deep thought. After a long time, Teresa, who had already come to a conclusion in her heart, was not in a hurry to say her thoughts. Instead, she looked at Kalinin. "Major, how long do you plan to keep the three of them there?" Kalinin raised his gaze and looked at the main screen. There, a progress bar was displayed. "Until the root of the problem is completely resolved." Kalinin's answer was not beyond Teresa's expectations. "In short, does it depend on our performance? If the battle goes smoothly, there is no need for Qin Yao's guard mission to continue. Moreover, we can also make contact with the force that took Mira away on the premise that the threat is resolved." The more she thought about it, the more she felt that this assumption was operational. Teresa slowly nodded. "Yes, not only Qin Yao, but even other Whisperer candidates can escape from this dangerous situation." However, in Kalinin's assumption, Teresa raised another assumption. However, this assumption is based on the premise that the force hiding behind Mira will not want Qin Yao or even other Whisperers. Looking at Teresa, who was subconsciously pinching her ponytail, Kalinin said in a deep voice, "Yes, this might be a gamble. Yes, gamble. Moreover, this is only temporary safety." Teresa seemed to agree with Kalinin's words. "Richard, how much time do we need before the information is confirmed?" "Yes, according to the current situation, we should have a result within 72 hours. 72 hours? It's going to be a long time." Amidst Teresa's slight sigh, the son of the pill slave cruising in the deep sea slowly drove into the darkness, heading towards the sea near the predetermined target. However, in the sunny Durijundai High School, a farce was playing out. A farce called protection. Whether it was in class or after class, as long as there was Xiang Liang Zongjie and Qin Yao, there would be collisions, explosions, and even panic screams at the same time. "It's really noisy." Standing by the window of the staff office, Ray Minkai shook his head helplessly. Knowing was one thing, seeing it with his own eyes was another. After seeing Xiang Liang Zongjie's ability to cause trouble with his own eyes, Ray Minkai couldn't help but marvel at Qin Yao's strong nerves. One must know that ordinary women couldn't stand Xiang Liang Zongjie's terrifying nerve circuit. Mira, aren't you going to communicate with your classmates? Turning around, Ray Minkai looked at Mira, who was sitting quietly on the chair. No, this is good. Mira shook her head and said softly. Seeing this, Ray Minkai sighed helplessly. It seems that this mental trauma will last for a long time. Bang! Outside the window, there was another explosion. It's starting again. In the midst of the exclamation, the staff office door was opened. It was Eri Kagarizaka. Rain-sensei, oh, and Mira-san is also here. Perfect. Can I ask Rain-sensei and Mira-san to see if there's anything that needs to be changed in this schedule? As soon as Eri Kagarizaka entered the door, she immediately waved the paper in her hand a few times, hinting Ray Minkai and Mira to take a look. Ray Minkai glanced at it and knew that it was about the study trip. Mira, are you interested in taking a look? Mira lowered her head in thought, then asked softly, Can we go to the mountains? As soon as this question came out, Eri Kagarizaka denied it. No, Mira-san, this study trip is to a tropical island, sun, beach, and sea. However, Eri Kagarizaka, who was immersed in her yearning for the sea, didn't notice Myra's disappointment. On the other hand, Lei Minkai knew that this was Myra's longing for her hometown, the endless stretch of mountains. There will be a chance. Mira, there will be a chance for us to go back to your hometown. Ray Minkai reached out and gently patted Myra's little head, slowly comforting her. This small episode didn't dispel Eri Kagarizaka's enthusiasm for the study trip. Instead, she became even more enthusiastic about Ray Minkai and Myra's itinerary. At the same time, on the cold land, a conspiracy was gradually unfolding. It's really cold. On the bridge that was shrouded in icy mist, a man with a stern face and eyes that were constantly flashing with coldness said something that had nothing to do with his image. However, these words didn't resonate with the two men in thick coats standing not far in front of him. Instead, they angered the tall man. However, this bear-like man was stopped by the relatively short man standing in front of him. He, as expected of the KGB branch director, you really know how to behave. The cold man chuckled and casually threw the two photos that were protected by a hardcover over to him. As the hard shell fell on the cold ground, it made a crisp sound. The bear-like man bent down to pick up the photos and handed them to the KGB branch director. This is the Mithril AS. The branch director looked at the first photo. It was a photo of the Mithril AS falling from the sky and sliding on the ground. The cold man explained. Mithril. The branch director's eyes narrowed slightly. This is the culprit that caused our plan to fail? Who are they? A mysterious mercenary group. They destroyed drug factories, destroyed terrorist training camps, and have technology that is 10 years ahead of the world's level. With your strength, you can't deal with them. The cold man slowly explained his understanding of Mithril, but the branch director didn't show any attitude of believing or not. Instead, he chose to look at the next photo. And this photo was exactly the same as the photo Teresa and the others saw. Light wings. This is also the masterpiece of Mithril? No, not at all. This body is probably something more mysterious than Mithril. I spent a lot of money to get this photo from some secret channel. The cold-looking man smiled and turned around to face the tall and short man. The branch director looked away from the photo and stared at the cold man's face. Jiolong, according to what you said, they are the ones who are hindering our plan? The branch director said as he waved the photo in his hand. If the experiment is successful, the world's power balance will be destroyed in an instant. For this reason, they will definitely feel that they can't sit idly by. After all, this power is so strong that people can't extricate themselves. The cold man called Jiu Long showed a sinister smile. Chapter 340. Decent attire, respectful posture, and that familiar yet slightly unfamiliar old face. Ray Minkai looked at the old man guarding the door and quickly remembered his name. Jack, Sir Mallory's butler. The old man who was called by Ray Minkai bowed slightly and greeted Ray Minkai. Yes, I am Jack. I didn't expect Sir Ray to remember my name. It's an honor. Ray Minkai patted Myra's shoulder and motioned for her to open the door first before inviting Jack in. Jack, please come in. Yes, it's an honor. After some pleasantries, Jack sat on the sofa in Lei Minkai's house. However, he politely declined Lei Minkai's offer to have Mira serve him tea. Sir Ray Minkai, today, I'm here under orders. There's no need for Miss Mira to do these things herself. Jack's firm attitude made Ray Minkai frown slightly, but he didn't insist on it. So, Ray Minkai gestured for Jack to continue. Jack glanced at Mira, who was sitting quietly next to him, and didn't say much, but went straight to the topic. From the looks of the two of you, it might be a good time to study here. But does Sir Ray Minkai know about the current situation in the Dark World? How the forces targeting certain special groups started their activities? Jack's opening remarks were nothing new, and Lei Minkai could see the intention behind them as soon as he opened his mouth. Yes, my master found out through some channels that after Miss Mira was rescued by you, the forces that tried to use a special group to steal uncontrollable power were unwilling to fail, so they took the next step. Next step? Were they eyeing other targets? Or have they found Mira? Upon hearing Lei Minkai mention her name, Myra's entire body trembled. Her originally calm appearance began to change into one of panic. In the beginning, Ray Minkai and Jack didn't mention Mira, but Mira was smart enough to know that they seemed to be talking about something related to her. Especially after Ray Minkai directly mentioned Myra's name, the fear in Myra's heart that hadn't been eliminated emerged again. Just as Mira was about to be dominated by the fear of those inhumane experiments, a warm hand pressed on Myra's shoulder. Don't worry, Mira. You won't come back to that nightmarish hell. This, I can guarantee in the name of the Britannia Empire. Ray Minkai's voice seemed to have a powerful force and instantly dispelled the fear in Myra's heart. Seeing Myra's face gradually calming down, Jack, who was sitting at the side, was lost in thought. His arrival was naturally Mallory's idea. Otherwise, Mallory wouldn't have sent his trusted aide, old Jack, to this faraway country separated by the ocean. While informing Ray Minkai to be careful of some dark forces, he also had some intentions of probing. The most obvious purpose was to try and find out the situation of the forces behind Ray Minkai. However, old Jack, who was mentally prepared for a difficult test, was surprised to find that the most difficult goal in his heart was accomplished so easily. This was as easy as picking up a stone on the road. However, even though Ray Minkai had just comforted Mira and mentioned the name of the Britannia Empire, Jack didn't rashly open his mouth to ask. It was one thing for Mira to mention it, but whether he could open his mouth to ask was another matter. However, Jack now had a faint itch in his heart, and he couldn't wait to find out the name of the Britannia Empire that Ray Minkai mentioned. Sorry for making a fool of myself. Myra's mental state isn't very stable now. Perhaps our topic has somewhat agitated Mira. After comforting Mira and gently sending her back to her room, Ray Minkai returned to his seat with an apologetic smile. No, I was the one who acted rashly. Due to the urgency of the situation, I didn't take Miss Myra's mental state into consideration. This is my dereliction of duty. After I return to ask the old master, I will send an apology gift to Miss Mira. Please rest assured, Sir Ray Minkai. Jack's expression became extremely solemn, making Ray Minkai unable to find any flaw in his attitude that could be rejected. All right, since Jack is so insistent, I can't refuse. However, whether Mira will accept or not is not something I can influence. Yes, I fully understand this. Then, back to the main topic. Sir Ray Minkai, please listen to me. This time, I beg you and Miss Mira to not participate in the study trip of the Generation High School. As Mallory's envoy, Jack finally revealed the purpose of his trip. Study trip? When Jack said this, he fell into Ray Minkai's trap. He didn't expect that on the eve of the study trip, Mallory, who was far away in Australia, would actually send a trusted aide to warn him. This was really unexpected for Ray Minkai. However, Ray Minkai knew that this was only a test. Thank you for your kindness, Sir Mallory. However, no matter what happens during the study trip, my answer is still to continue. Although this study trip is not something worth looking forward to personally, for Mira, it is an opportunity to interact with the surrounding people as much as possible. Ray Minkai's answer made Jack frown, but he didn't say anything. It was as if his duty was only to inform Ray Minkai to be careful, or to stay away from the study trip, which was about to open a huge pit. Since Sir Ray Minkai has already made up his mind, then I can't say anything more. This is the end of my mission. Sir Ray Minkai, please allow me to leave first. However, just as Jack got up to leave, Ray Minkai suddenly called him. Jack, the person leading this operation is called Nine Dragons, right? For a moment, Jack's footsteps paused. Even if Jack's back was facing Ray Minkai could still sense that Jack's current expression should be very interesting. After a while, Jack slowly nodded. Yes, Sir Ray Minkai is right. The person leading this operation is Nine Dragons, as well as some people in the KGB. Is that so? I see. Help me pass a message to Mallory. Say that I'm very grateful for Sir Mallory's kindness. If there's a chance, I hope to have dinner with Sir Mallory again. As soon as Lei Minkai finished speaking, Jack, who had his back facing Lei Minkai, turned around once again and bowed with a respectful expression, saying, I'm sorry. Yes, Sir Ray Minkai, I will bring your words back to my master in its entirety. Finally, I hope that Miss Mira can recover as soon as possible. I thank you for your kindness on behalf of Mira. Jack, then, sir, I will take my leave. As the door closed, Jack's figure also disappeared outside the door. Did you do it on purpose? When the sound of a car starting came from downstairs, White Cat Zero's figure appeared from behind the sofa and jumped onto the table, slightly raising its head to look at Ray Minkai. On purpose? What did I do on purpose? Ray Minkai took out a bottle of purified water from the fridge and said casually while opening it, the matter of exposing the Britannia Empire. White Cat Zero looked at Ray Minkai drinking a few mouthfuls of water and said again, about this. Zero, have you heard of false and true, true and false? Speak human language. Minkai, don't say these things that are giving me a headache. Ray Minkai's words almost made White Cat Zero explode on the spot. Hee. Lei Minkai smiled and casually put the purified water aside before continuing, you're right. If I put on a serious attitude and said the name of the Britannia Empire, do you think they will believe it? White Cat Zero immediately looked at Ray Minkai with disdain. The meaning was self-evident. Yes, as long as the humans in this world have a little understanding of the international situation, they will definitely know that the Britannia Empire will never exist in this world. Ha! At this point, Ray Minkai snapped his fingers. But what if I casually said the name of the Britannia Empire? What do you think these people, who have doubts about Lancelot's appearance and the technology he possesses, will think? Ray Minkai's hint was straightforward enough. Even White Cat Zero, who was too lazy to care about this, already understood Ray Minkai's meaning. Minkai, you liar. Are you still a knight? Ray Minkai shrugged his shoulders and spread his hands. I have never thought of myself as a knight. White Cat Zero waved its claws in disdain and pointed at Ray Minkai with its sharp claws. Then are you still Her Majesty the Emperor's Guardian Knight? At the mention of this, Ray Minkai's expression suddenly became solemn. Of course, Ray Minkai will definitely be Her Majesty the Empress Euphemia Guardian Knight in this life. Then you still say that you are not a knight. In the next second, White Cat Zero turned the topic back to Ray Minkai's denial that he was a knight. In this regard, Ray Minkai still spread his hands. That's two different things. Roar. Ray Minkai, you big liar. This is a strategy. In fact, just as Mallory sent someone to inform Ray Minkai, a conspiracy was gradually unfolding. However, this time, the target was not as simple as Chidori wanting the girl who stood aloof from worldly affairs. Instead, the target was expanded to the second and third person. In the cold easternmost land, The man known as Jiu Long stood on a hillside and silently looked down at the base that had begun to become busy. The person standing next to him was the KGB branch director that he met on the bridge before. However, the bodyguard beside the branch chief was no longer the bear-like man, but another man who was slightly inferior, but still had a strong build. Jiu Long, can your plan really succeed? This is not as simple as having a single target. If this operation fails, I'm afraid that what we've provoked will not be as simple as that mithril. The branch director retracted his gaze from the busy base and looked at the ruthless man standing next to him who pulled out his gun without saying a word. In the previous meeting, according to the usual routine, the guard who played the bad cop was directly shot by this man. There was not the slightest sign of it happening. It was as if, in the eyes of this man named Jiu Long, there was no existence of life. Hey, branch director, are you afraid? Jiu Long moved his eyes that were indifferent to life and death, looked at the branch director who was shorter than him, and smiled slightly. However, that's also true. Whether it's the two superpowers in the world, or Mithril, who has control of black technology that surpasses the world for more than 10 years, they don't have the technology to allow the AS to fly freely in the sky like a fighter. Thinking of the pair of light wings that were stunning no matter when he looked at it, Jiu Long's eyes revealed a rare trace of interest. A force with such advanced technology is actually unknown to the public. Moreover, their goal seems to be the Whispers. Don't tell me, branch director, you didn't think of anything? Jiu Long's deliberate guidance was very effective. As soon as his voice fell, the branch director suddenly realized something. Is it the hidden power of that force? Jiu Long looked at the branch director, who suddenly realized something, and smiled. Who knows? But in this world, only the Whisperers can possess such powerful black technology. The branch director took several deep breaths and barely suppressed the growing excitement in his heart. Jiu Long, although the benefits of this operation are great, the risks are also great. If we fail, we will face the situation of provoking Mithril and that unknown force. Before the branch director finished speaking, he was interrupted by Jiu Long. Branch director, how could he be so timid when doing things? In fact, from the moment the experiment began, there was no turning back, was there? Jiu Long smiled and looked at the branch director with cold eyes. Or does the branch director want to deduct my due reward after the matter is done? The cold light in Jiu Long's eyes made the branch director tremble, but he could still maintain the most basic calmness. No, Jiu Long, the agreement between us is still valid. Moreover, after the operation is successful, the reward will be increased by 20% on the basis of the original. Oh, 20%? At least 30%. Jiu Long snorted at the mention of reward. Jiu Long's bargaining put the branch director in a difficult position, but in the end, he gritted his teeth. Deal. Jiu Long, who succeeded in bargaining, smiled. Then, he took out 2 photos from his arms. One was a photo of Chidori. The other was a photo of Mira wearing a high school uniform and standing at the school gate. Then, let's bring back the lost experimental body and the new experimental body together. How about it? This seems to be called killing 2 birds with 1 stone, right? Branch director. Chapter 341. The curtain of night fell. Tomorrow was the day of the study trip. Although she did not have much expectations for this study trip, Mira was still full of expectations for Ray Minkai's promise that he would take her back to the mountain to have a look. Thus, after packing her luggage alone, she obediently returned to her room to rest. Ray Minkai sat on the sofa and looked at some of the information that he had collected these days. Kai, do you want to come out and take a look? At this time, White Cat State Zero, who was always lying on the balcony as long as he was at home, suddenly shouted, "What's wrong? Did someone touch this side?" Ray Minkai raised his head and looked at the balcony. No, it's just that someone touched the little girl's balcony. White Cat State Zero snorted disdainfully and said what it saw. White Cat Zero didn't like the balcony, but White Cat Zero took the initiative to occupy this place with an excellent view. Moreover, With its extremely bewitching and cute appearance, it openly monitored the entrance and exit of this residential area. No one would have thought that this adorable little white cat was actually a steel lion that could transform into a 10-meter-tall and nearly 30-meter-long lion at any time. Thus, the mighty iron lion on the balcony was born. However, it seemed that there were some side effects. Even if White Cat State Zero issued a warning, one could still hear the wailing and crying sounds in the community or nearby from time to time. In this regard, Ray Minkai once teased White Cat State Zero with the words, "You've been taking a fancy to." As a result, Ray Minkai's face was almost scratched by the White Cat State Zero's sharp claws. However, this wasn't something that was worth mentioning. Right now, the most important thing was the little girl that White Cat State Zero mentioned, which was the situation on the balcony of Qianyao's home. In fact, when White Cat State Zero reminded him, Ray Minkai remembered what was going on. After thinking about it, Ray Minkai reached out and picked up a coin from the table, got up, and walked to the balcony. He handed it to White Cat State Zero and raised his head towards Qianyao's room. "What are you doing?" White Cat State Zero did not react for a while and looked at the coin in Ray Minkai's hand with some doubt. "Throw it over. I don't have the power to throw this coin tens of meters away." Ray Minkai glanced at White Cat State Zero and said his thoughts while cruising on the surrounding rooftops. Soon, Ray Minkai found a person who was hiding on the roof of the building opposite Qianyao's location. Cruz Weiba. Sure enough, this guy had run there at the first moment. However, tonight was not a good time for him to show off. "Don't do it again." White Cat State Zero stared at the coin in Ray Minkai's hand and opened its mouth to bite it. "When we go back, I'll ask UFFI to prepare a big meal for you. How about that?" In the next moment, Ray Minkai's words made White Cat State Zero's body tremble. After subconsciously glancing at Ray Minkai, a few vague sounds of unknown meaning sounded from its throat. It slightly exerted force on Qianyao's balcony, and the coin that was bitten by it suddenly turned into a stream of light. In the blink of an eye, it crossed the distance of tens of meters between the two buildings and broke Qianyao's clothes rack on the balcony. Bang! There was a crisp sound. The clothes hanging on the clothes rack drifted down like snowflakes, and the figures covered by the clothes, and the lights that illuminated the dark room. Then, a lioness roar and two weak and pitiful little animal-like wails instantly spread throughout the entire community. TSK. What a bad taste. Looking at the two people who were about to be oppressed by the furious Chidori, the corner of State White Cat Zero's mouth slightly raised. Obviously, this good show led by was quite exciting. Lei Minkai, on the other hand, shook his head in amusement. The coin just now was just Ray Minkai's impromptu idea. Anyway, regardless of Ray Minkai's intervention, Sagara Sosuke, who kindly went to rescue, and Fuma Shinji, who was thought by Sagara Sosuke and Kurlutz to be plotting something, would be discovered by Qianyao sooner or later. Thinking of this, Ray Minkai suddenly remembered that behind the character of Fuma Shinji, there seemed to be some dark history of a voice actor. Wait, his thoughts were a little scattered. Kai, that unlucky guy's companion, seems to have discovered us. White Cat State Zero, who was watching Sagara Sosuke and Fuma Shinji being brutally abused by Qianyao, suddenly raised its head and looked at the roof where Kurlutz was. Ray Minkai looked up and indeed found that he was being aimed at by a sniper rifle. What should we do? Kai, should we kill that guy? White Cat State Zero was eager to try, for at this distance of tens of meters was not a problem. As long as it wanted to, it was just a matter of a blink of an eye. No, just a greeting. There's no need to be so nervous. Ray Minkai naturally waved towards Kurlutz, then turned around and returned to the room without any warning, leaving White Cat State Zero, who watched Kurlutz move the sniper rifle away and continue to watch the good show on Qianyao's side. Yours too. What do we do next? Looks like this is just a farce. Ray Minkai left in a carefree manner, but Kurlutz was in a difficult position. The swift and decisive style of counterattack at the beginning was gone, and what was left was helplessness towards Sagara Sosuke's foolishness, as well as the depression of Ray Minkai's intervention midway, which led to the failure of the operation. Yours 6. That's it. As long as the other side has no intention of continuing, let yours 7 gain some experience in communicating with people. Sitting in front of the walkie-talkie, Melissa casually opened a can of beer and shrugged her shoulders. Fortunately, it was just a false alarm. If there really was an attack, the situation here aside, Raymond Kai's side would definitely be an unstable factor, even if it was just a prank. Sigh. What's next is a study trip. What on earth should we do? If there was no unstable factor like Raymond Kai, Melissa did not feel that there was any problem. Unfortunately, it was Raymond Kai, this unstable factor, who was going on a study trip with Year 2 Class 4. This decision put Melissa in a difficult position for a moment. The noisy night gradually left. The sun, which once again scattered the sunlight on the earth, hung in the sky once again. As the school bus from Meidai High School slowly drove into the parking lot of the airport, Meidai High School Year 2 Class 4 study trip was about to depart. Lei-sensei, come over here. Let the students line up orderly to board the plane. Standing behind the boarding gate, Eri Kagurazuka saw Rei Minkai and waved at him, repeatedly greeting him. Rei Minkai responded with a smile and politely declined the invitation. He still had things to deal with. State 0, protect Mira. Rei Minkai looked around in the name of observing the situation of the students, and at the same time communicated with the White Cat State 0 in his mind. Don't worry, the machines here can't detect my presence at all. I'll stay by Myra's side. But you have to be careful too. The White Cat State 0 appeared to be very confident. Hiding by Myra's side, it completely ignored the surrounding security personnel and casually laid on Myra's shoulder and boarded the plane with Mira. Lei-sensei, the last student has boarded the plane. It's time for us to board. Okay. Rei Minkai, who retracted his gaze from the parking lot outside, nodded and followed behind Eri Kagurazuka. They boarded the plane, which was supposed to be flying to a tropical island, but was actually flying to a completely opposite winterland. Along the way, the students who were full of anticipation for the study trip kept talking with yearning and even some noises. And in the midst of this noise, Mira seemed to be exceptionally quiet, which made Eri Kagurazuka, who was patrolling back and forth a few times, very concerned. Lei-sensei, is Myra's condition okay now? Not bad. Myra's condition is now recovering very well. It's just that she's still not used to communicating with others. Everything will be fine. Kagurazuka-sensei. Rei Minkai smiled slightly, letting Eri Kagurazuka not to worry too much about Myra's condition. Is that so? Just as Eri Kagurazuka wanted to continue the conversation with Rei Minkai, the White Cat's voice suddenly sounded in Rei Minkai's mind. Kai, there's the smell of blood. It's coming from the front. The enemy has made their move. I know. Be prepared. When Rei Minkai heard this, his eyes suddenly revealed a trace of light. Eri Kagurazuka, who caught this scene, trembled all over and was suddenly speechless. This was because Eri Kagurazuka was surprised to find that the Rei Minkai at this moment was not the Rei Minkai she had been in contact with during this period of time. It was as if from that moment on, Rei Minkai had become another person. In the midst of her panic, the sky outside the window gradually changed. The sky, which was supposed to be bright and sunny, became gloomy as Eri Kagurazuka's imagination ran wild. Moreover, Shinji Fuma, who was sitting in the back, saw a fighter jet that should not have appeared near the tropical island he knew. These signs were all consistent with the entire process of the incident in Rei Minkai's memory. As expected, as the passenger plane slowly landed, no matter how slow a student was, they would find that the airport they landed at was actually filled with armored vehicles by an AS named Barbarian. In the distant hangar, there were also fighter jets parked in active service. What happened in the end? When everyone had the same doubts in their hearts, only 3 people in the entire cabin were obviously in a state of alert. Xiangliang Sosuke naturally did not need to be mentioned. Lei Minkai had already known about this incident long ago. The third person left was Mira. Under the White Cat's gentle warning, Mira tried her best to pretend as if nothing had happened and walked towards the back of the cabin. Rei Minkai, who was sitting in the front, showed a puzzled expression and got up to investigate the situation in the front of the cabin. However, the moment Ray Minkai opened the curtain, a black muzzle forced Ray Minkai back. Back off! A strong man in a black suit and sunglasses with a pistol in his hand forced Ray Minkai back to his seat. Sit down. Facing the muzzle, Ray Minkai did as he was told, but he secretly observed behind the man in black. In the next second, the in-flight broadcast sounded. Everyone in the plane, from now on, I will replace the captain as the person in charge of this passenger plane. Due to some unavoidable reasons, this plane was forced to land in an Air Force base. The announcement in the broadcast and the muzzle that forced Ray Minkai back to his seat suddenly made Ari Karizka, who was a beat slower, stand up subconsciously, but then under the muzzle of the man in black, she was pulled back to her seat by another female teacher sitting next to her. Now, perhaps no one dared to cause trouble under the muzzle of a gun. Of course, among these people, there were still 2 people waiting for an opportunity to make a move. Then, in this complicated and thrilling place, please become our hostages. The broadcast ended. The man in black raised his pistol, pointed at everyone sitting in their seats, and said in a deep voice, "This is the situation. If you're willing to cooperate, we will guarantee your safety." After leaving this sentence, the man in black left the cabin. Ray Minkai knew that the man in black must have turned back to find 9 dragons and let 9 dragons come to the cabin to recognize people. "Chidori, I'm afraid it's going to be dangerous." Ray Minkai frowned, took out a pen and paper from his pocket, quickly wrote a few words on it, hit the opportunity, and threw it back. "Sagara Sosuke, you better see my prompt. Otherwise, I'm afraid the next action will be a bit troublesome." Fortunately, Sagara Sosuke was very alert. After discovering the existence of the man in black, he immediately calculated how to break through the current predicament. At this moment, the prompt that Ray Minkai threw at his feet immediately attracted Sagara Sosuke's attention. "It really is Chidori?" Ray Minkai's prompt instantly made Sagara Sosuke understand the fundamental purpose of this kidnapping. But all he had to do now was to find an opportunity to contact the son of the pill slave. Slightly getting up, Sagara Sosuke saw that Ray Minkai sitting in front of him also turned to look at him. Moreover, Ray Minkai nodded at Sagara Sosuke. The meaning was self-evident. "Let's go." Sagara Sosuke made a prompt decision. Sagara Sosuke no longer hesitated, only calling for the son of the pill slave's reinforcements as soon as possible was the best way to break through the current predicament. Thus, under Ray Minkai's prompt, Sagara Sosuke, like Mira, took advantage of the fact that no one was paying attention to turn around and run to the back of the cabin, disappearing behind the curtain in a few moments. This idiot isn't considered an idiot. After confirming that Sagara Sosuke had left, Ray Minkai secretly heaved a sigh of relief. All that was left was to stall for time and negotiate with 9 dragons and the others. Schwa. At this moment, the curtains were lifted. A man in a suit, but his face was slightly ferocious. His eyes flickered with the pleasure of licking blood. Finally, under Ray Minkai's gaze, he arrived at the cabin. He was 9 dragons. As soon as he walked into the cabin, he ignored most of the people, including Ray Minkai. He seemed to be casual, but in reality, he walked in front of Chidori with a clear goal. "Oh, little girl, how about you come with us? We need a puppet that can be photographed right now." However, before Chidori could refuse, the man in black who had left earlier returned. He came behind 9 dragons and said softly, "9 dragons. The experimental body that we lost earlier has disappeared. Our people have searched the entire cabin, but we haven't found any trace of her." "Oh, there's such a thing?" 9 dragons was surprised, but then he revealed a sinister smile. Bang! In the blink of an eye, a pistol appeared in 9 dragons' hand. Moreover, he fired a shot at the top of the cabin. "Sorry, I don't have much patience." Now, there's one less person we need to find. I wonder who can provide us with clues? Otherwise, if I get impatient, I won't be able to guarantee everyone's safety. gunshots, threats. Immediately, it resounded throughout the cabin. But in the next moment, a voice suppressed these voices. Quiet. 9 dragons. There's no need to scare these students. The person you're looking for should be me. Hearing this, 9 dragons turned around and looked. A look of surprise flashed across his eyes. Oh, so it was me who had eyes but failed to see. I actually let go of such a big shot. I presume that you are the person who saved our experimental body? It's me. So what? As long as you still want to do your business, then what you should do now is to reach a friendly agreement with me. Facing 9 dragons' threat, Ray Minkai fearlessly exposed 9 dragons' misgivings. TSK, looks like you know me a little. There's nothing I can do. After all, the goods are precious. Then, how about you and this little girl come with us? 9 dragons pointed his pistol at Chidori as he spoke. Ray Minkai used his eyes to signal Chidori to calm down. Good. Chidori, want to go with you, but you have to ensure the safety of everyone here. Of course, precious goods can naturally be compared to a promise. Chapter 342. Tap, tap, tap. Light footsteps could be heard in the dim cabin. Xiangliang Sosuke cautiously walked toward the cabin where the luggage was placed. Just now, Sosuke Xiangliang, who had left first, had heard a gunshot and heard the screams of the other students. In his shock, Sosuke Xiangliang had almost turned around and returned to the cabin, but his rational emotions had stopped him in his tracks. Although he didn't have much interaction with Ray Minkai from the previous fight and follow-up observation, Xiangliang Sosuke knew that the man who took away their mission target shouldn't be a reckless person. After thinking about it, Xiangliang Sosuke seemed to faintly feel that Ray Minkai probably already knew about this incident. Otherwise, he wouldn't have warned him in advance and let him wait for an opportunity to leave and ask for help from the son of the pill slave. Scary man. But now, I can only ask him to take care of Chidori. Xiangliang Sosuke didn't believe in Ray Minkai, but the situation in front of him was like this. If Xiangliang Sosuke hesitated about the safety of Chidori, he was afraid that he would lose the opportunity to ask for help from the son of the pill slave. Suddenly, Xiangliang Sosuke's footsteps paused, and he rolled to the right. He pulled out the crowbar fixed to the side and swung it to the left. Dong! A dull sound rang out, but it disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye. Kid, if I were you, I wouldn't wave this stick so recklessly. Do you want to call those people over? In the dim light, Xiangliang Sosuke vaguely saw a figure in front of him, and the crowbar in his hand also stopped in midair. You are. Although the light was very dim, Xiangliang Sosuke could still see the rough outline of the person in front of him. It was a girl. Combined with the current situation, there was probably only one girl who could come here first. Mira? Your classmate Mira? The moment he called out the other party's name, Xiangliang Sosuke realized something else. The voice just now wasn't Mira's voice, nor was it a delicate female voice, but a dull voice with a metallic taste. Who? Who is there? Xiangliang Sosuke gritted his teeth and struggled to stand up. When he wanted to rush forward to protect Mira, he unexpectedly bumped into an invisible wall. Bang! Brat! Look ahead before you act. The metallic voice sounded again, but this time there was a hint of mockery in it. Was she making fun of him for losing his composure? Xiangliang Soji quickly got up and looked around warily. This time, he finally saw the source of the sound. It was the white cat in Mila's arms. Cat, did you talk? No matter how tenacious Xiangliang Soji's nerves were, the fact that his pet cat suddenly spoke seriously challenged his worldview. Is it surprising that cats can talk? Kid. The white cat in Myra's arms waved its paw and pointed at Sosuke Xiangliang. Kid, hurry up and do what you need to do. You don't have to worry about this. If you still want to save that little girl. Chidori. Xiangliang Sosuke was stunned and subconsciously frowned. He immediately rushed to the place where his luggage was placed and tried to rummage through it. Student Mira, it's very dangerous in the cabin now. Please try to stay in a deserted place and wait for rescue. While searching for his luggage, Sagara Sosuke sent a warning to Mira, but Mira didn't respond. The only one who responded was the white cat, State Zero. Kid, you don't have to worry about Xiao Mi's safety. Since I'm here, even if those short winter melons outside come together, they won't be able to do anything to Mira. Listening to the white cat's bold words, Xiangliang Sosuke's frown deepened. But the situation in front of him was urgent, and Xiangliang Sosuke did not want to waste time and energy on unnecessary things. In particular, why was this white cat able to speak human language, and why was it constantly mocking him? Kid, hide well. Someone is coming. Suddenly, the white cat issued a warning, and once again fell into darkness with Mira. Xiangliang Sosuke did not have time to put the luggage back to its original position. He could only pick up the luggage and plunge it into the pile of garbage next to him. The cabin door opened with a roar. The men in black who walked into the cabin with 9 dragons and were about to take away Rei Minkai and Chidori boarded the passenger plane again. But this time, their purpose was not to check the condition of the passengers, but to do something more terrible than kidnapping the hostages. Listening to the conversation of the 3 men in black, Xiangliang Sosuke found that they seemed to have placed a time bomb with terrifying power in the cabin where the luggage was placed. Resisting the urge to rush out and seize the time bomb, Xiangliang Sosuke finally waited for the men in black to activate the time bomb and turn around to leave. Ka! The moment the cabin door closed, Xiangliang Sosuke rushed out of the garbage and tried to open the box with the time bomb. However, there was someone faster than him. Student Mira? Xiangliang Soji exclaimed in surprise as he looked at Mira, who had appeared in front of him out of nowhere. Kid, let me take care of this bomb. You go ask for help first. The white cat State Zero slowly jumped onto the top of the box, looked at Xiangliang Sosuke, and asked him to go first again. Xiangliang Sosuke's gaze wandered around the box a few times and finally gritted his teeth, turned around, and landed on the ground along the landing pad. Master State Zero, do you know how to defuse bombs? After Sagayoshi Sosuke left, Mira gently opened the top of the box and looked at the huge bomb that even Mira couldn't move. The white cat State Zero looked down at the time bomb that was 10 times bigger than the white cat's body and shook his head slightly. No. Then why did Master State Zero let Xiangliang Sosuke leave? When he was alone with the white cat State Zero and Rei Minkai, Mira was much more relaxed and had his own subjective ability to act. If we let him stay, will he know how to defuse it? No matter who it was, as long as they saw the parts and circuits on the bomb, they would subconsciously know that this was not a bomb that could be easily dismantled. That young man does not have any equipment that could defuse the bomb. The white cat State Zero turned around, jumped down from the box, and landed steadily on the ground. Instead of letting him stay here and be troubled, it is better to let him go and let him do it himself. But Master State Zero, you don't know how to defuse bombs. Defuse? Can't I just eat the bomb? Why do I have to defuse it? The white cat State Zero raised its head, and a huge lion shadow suddenly appeared. The next moment, a light breeze blew Myra's ponytail, and the white cat State Zero's lion form appeared in the breeze. Then, the huge lion just opened its mouth and swallowed the time bomb that was enough to blow up the entire passenger plane. This amazing scene made Myra's eyes widen uncontrollably as he stared at the lion's huge mouth that swallowed the time bomb. There's nothing to see. Mira, I'm just moving this damn thing to another space. As the huge lion's body turned into a shadow again, the white cat State Zero appeared in front of Mira again and lightly landed on Myra's shoulder. Okay, now it's up to Kai. I need to take a short nap. Mira, let's stay here. Yes. Master State Zero. In the quiet, deep sea, the atmosphere in the bridge of the Son of Dan Slave was not as tranquil as the deep sea outside. Instead, it was filled with an increasingly tense atmosphere. It's a rare study trip. I didn't expect this to happen in the end. It seems that my initial worry has come true. We really shouldn't have left that airbase behind. Teresa's right hand was gently pinching the end of her braid, as usual, and she was talking about things that she regretted a lot. Sir Colonel, there is nothing perfect in this world. No matter how much you think about it, there will always be a mistake. Kalinin, who was standing beside Teresa, said in a deep voice, "Even a wise man will make a mistake." Teresa pondered for a moment and smiled slightly. "I remember that there was such a saying in that ancient country." "Exactly, Sir Colonel. However, this is not what we should be thinking about now." Kalina nodded and reminded, "Yes, the purpose of causing such a huge commotion in such a troublesome area is probably Qianyao and Mira, the two whisperers." Teresa nodded and entered deep thought. "Yes, from the current situation, no matter what the reason is, the kidnapping of 400 people is not a good thing for the autonomous region, even if there are two whisperers behind this incident." Kalinen's words made Teresa agree. At the same time, she added, "I'm afraid that the air base and the autonomous region are both controlled by some ambitious people. The hidden purpose of such a person should not be limited to this." Teresa paused and said a depressing fact. "But even if we understand the truth behind the scenes, the only thing we can use right now is non-war methods to exert pressure and force the autonomous region to release them. However, the probability of success is really low." Kalinin muttered, "However, if Qianyao and Mira are excluded, the success rate will greatly increase." "How shameful. I actually have to make the decision to give up 2 people to save most people." Teresa seemed to have made a difficult decision. Very ashamed. After Kalinin replied, he said, "However, there's poison inside the enemy, as well as something even more terrifying than poison. Vicious poison. What does Teresa know about this metaphor?" However, the second half of the sentence puzzled Teresa. "Sir Colonel, whether it is an instant fatal poison or a slow death poison, they all point to the same result without exception. However, a playful beast won't be like this. As long as the beast's playfulness hasn't subsided, it will be merciful again and again, allowing the prey to escape, and then capture it again and play with it wantonly until it loses its playfulness." What surprised Teresa was that Kalinin used the word beast to describe someone. "Major, you mean that person?" "Yes. Recently, after reading the information in our hands many times, I have come to a conclusion." A strange look flashed in Kalinin's eyes, and he said with a hoarse voice, "The information we currently have is likely to be deliberately leaked to us by the other party. Even the other party's appearance in Australia, where our mithril headquarters is located, was intentional. Perhaps the other party has already been in contact with our mithril higher-ups from the beginning." The dark muzzle of the gun never left Ray Minkai's back, and the man standing in front of Ray Minkai never stopped sizing up Ray Minkai. "It's time to end your night game, young man." Nine Dragons withdrew his gaze and glanced at Qianyao, who was held at the side. He smiled slightly, as if he had already seen through Ray Minkai's trick. "Night game?" Even with the muzzle pointed at his back, Ray Minkai's expression remained unchanged. "I don't think this is a night game." "Is that so? Then, how about you tell me the whereabouts of our valuable goods?" Nine Dragons narrowed his eyes slightly, but he looked at Qianyao, as if he wanted to use Qianyao to threaten Ray Minkai. However, Nine Dragons' calculations were wrong. Faced with this threat, Ray Minkai chose to ignore it. On the contrary, the man in black who held Qianyao couldn't help but jump out first. "Nine Dragons, if you want to play a killing game, that's your business. Don't delay our mission. TSK. Then, please leave this place." Although Nine Dragons was a little unhappy, he still did as he was told. After all, Qianyao was also a valuable commodity for Nine Dragons and the others. When Qianyao was about to be taken away, Ray Minkai was actually indifferent to Qianyao's call for help and stood motionlessly in his original position. Immediately after, the man in black who took Qianyao away suddenly threw down such a sentence. "Nine Dragons. One experimental subject is enough. The previous one is probably broken. The branch director won't care if he can find it or not. Is that so? Then, young man, I'm very sorry. Please die." Bang! Nine Dragons fired without hesitation. Perhaps he had been looking forward to this moment from the very beginning. However, the moment the gunshot rang out and sparks flew, Ray Minkai, who was pointed at his back with a pistol, suddenly swayed. The moment 9 dragons fired, he switched places with the man in black behind him. Blood splattered everywhere. The man in black had actually become Ray Minkai's scapegoat. Bang! 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 Ray Minkai's left hand pushed against the man in black, and his right hand snatched the pistol from the man in black who had become his scapegoat with lightning speed. He fired 3 shots at 9 dragons. However, it was dodged by 9 dragons. Interesting. Young man, you are indeed a hidden fellow. It seems that you are the one who took away our goods. So what if I am? The battle with 9 dragons began at this moment. Chapter 343. 9 dragons. You bastard. Hearing the sudden gunshots behind him, the black-clothed man knew that the ferocious 9 dragons had once again started their massacre. However, no matter how much the black-clothed man had opinions, he didn't dare to criticize the 9 dragons' actions too much at this time. No matter what, there were seniors who had died for this as examples in front of him. Hey, let's go. Wait, what are you trying to do? I'm just an ordinary high school student. Go. Hurry up and leave. The sudden gunshots not only made the black-clothed man nervous, but even the Qin Yao, who had been controlled the entire time, began to subconsciously resist. In order to leave this place that had already been occupied by the battle between the Black Dragon and Ray Minkai as soon as possible, the black-clothed man would not care about Qin Yao's resistance and forcefully escort him away. However, the black-clothed man's movement stiffened, and then he released his control over Qin Yao and slowly fell to the ground. This sudden turn of events caused Qin Yao, who was still resisting, to be stunned, as if he had yet to fully react to what was going on. Thump! Thump! A few more gunshots rang out, and a figure rushed to Qin Yao's side at the same time. After kicking away the black-clothed man who had fallen to the ground, he reached out and grabbed Qin Yao's right hand, forcefully pulling it to the back of the container not far away. You, Teacher Lei? Qin Yao, who had instinctively resisted a few times, suddenly saw that the figure who had pulled him to the back of the container was actually Ray Minkai, and couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. Quiet. Qin Yao wants to be a classmate. Now is not the time to be surprised. Lei Minkai swiftly removed the magazine, and after confirming the amount of bullets he had left, he casually instructed, Let's go. Qin Yao wants to be a classmate. Can you help me find some ammunition from over there? Qin Yao subconsciously followed Ray Minkai's instructions and discovered that Ray Minkai actually wanted Qin Yao to search for the black-clothed man and find usable ammunition from his body. Seeing the suit on the black-clothed man's body that was gradually becoming wet, Qin Yao's entire body trembled. He couldn't help but be frightened by the dark red that was constantly drenching the suit. No, why do you want me to touch that corpse? Because I'm almost out of ammo. Ray Minkai's reason stunned Qin Yao. Now, Qin Yao clearly understood that he had been swept up in a terrifying matter. He also discovered that Ray Minkai, who had the title of teacher, was actually able to shoot without changing his expression and kill the black-clothed man who had just detained him. Stop daydreaming. 1,000 birds want. Do you want to be caught? Ray Minkai shouted again after firing several shots and temporarily suppressing the 9 dragons that were trying to rush over. I got it. Qin Yao's ability to accept was very strong, and after she reacted, she immediately endured the discomfort of wanting to vomit and began to search for possible magazines, according to Ray Minkai. Bang! Several gunshots rang out from where 9 dragons was hiding, followed by a series of hurried footsteps. How so? Are you not going to resist anymore? That would disappoint me. Mr. Knight. Ray Minkai did not shoot because there was not much ammunition left in the magazine. If he rashly fired again, the situation would definitely become even worse. 9 dragons also saw this point. Thus, as he approached the bunker where Ray Minkai and Qin Yao were hiding, he continuously used words to test Ray Minkai. Ray Minkai was naturally not moved by his words, but Qin Yao, who was fumbling with the magazine, subconsciously trembled. Although Qian Yao had a strong personality, this sudden change from a pleasant study trip to a gunfight still made Qian Yao feel a little at a loss. Qian Yao wants to be a classmate. Move quickly. Ray Minkai listened to Nine Dragon's footsteps, estimated the distance between the two sides, and urged Qian Yao to move. I know. Qian Yao, who was gritting his teeth, suddenly froze. Then, he suddenly picked up the hard object that he suspected to be a box from the black-clothed man. Found it. Bastard teacher, catch it for me. Qian Yao wanted to see clearly that the object he had found was a magazine and threw it towards Ray Minkai. Thank you. Now hurry up and hide. Ray Minkai only raised his hand and caught the magazine that Qian Yao was about to throw over. After casually reminding him, he emptied the remaining ammunition in the original magazine in one breath. Immediately after, just as Qian Yao was about to carefully hide behind Ray Minkai, another commotion came from Nine Dragons. Ray Minkai changed the magazine as gently as possible while listening to the movements from Nine Dragons. In the next moment, as soon as the commotion approached Ray Minkai suddenly exerted force under his feet and rolled forward. As he rushed out of the bunker, he also moved the muzzle of his gun forward. However, just as Ray Minkai was about to shoot, he realized that there was no one in front of him. Not good. The moment Ray Minkai's mind was alarmed, his body was also driven by his instinct to avoid disaster. He forcefully stopped his body from rolling forward and turned a roll to the left. Bang! Right at this moment, a small crater appeared where Ray Minkai was originally standing. It was the result of the gunshot. Ka! Just as the smoke of gunpowder rose, Ray Minkai, who had narrowly avoided the attack, suddenly raised his gun and fired. Buzz buzz! Ray Minkai's bullet pierced through the air and hit a container not far away, causing a burst of sparks, but did not hit anyone. Hey, sorry, Mr. Knight, your little trick did not succeed. Nine Dragons slowly turned their heads and revealed a sinister smile. The commotion just now was only caused by Nine Dragons luring Ray Minkai to take the bait. However, in the subsequent ambush, Ray Minkai did not take the bait. Instead, he almost killed Nine Dragons. If Nine Dragons had not taken the initiative from the beginning, he would have been killed by Ray Minkai's counterattack. The muzzles of the two sides were 5 meters apart, pointing at each other. The red dot on Ray Minkai's forehead was clearly visible, but there was still a red dot on Nine Dragons' heart. Both sides subconsciously locked onto each other's fatal weakness at the same time. The confrontation continued. Even if both sides knew that as long as the trigger was pulled, the other would definitely be killed, they did not dare to shoot rashly. Especially Nine Dragons, who faintly took the initiative, found that Ray Minkai seemed to know him very well. From a moment Ray Minkai directly locked on his heart, Nine Dragons already had this feeling. Especially because of the injury on the battlefield in his early years, Nine Dragons' brain was buried with a steel plate. This steel plate was one of the key factors that allowed Nine Dragons to escape from death several times in the following days. Have you been discovered? Nine Dragons clearly felt that Ray Minkai was determined to get his heart. Gamble. That was indeed the case. As long as Nine Dragons fired, it meant that he was betting on whether Ray Minkai's bullet would also shatter his heart at the same time. The atmosphere of the confrontation became sharper and more oppressive. Qian Yao, who was hiding on the side, secretly gritted her teeth and forced herself not to make any sound. She didn't understand, but she didn't dare to think about it. The situation in front of her was beyond the imagination of this girl who had lived in a peaceful country for more than 10 years. Boom! Suddenly, a mechanical roar came from outside, and it also became a horn that interrupted the confrontation between the two sides. Bang! Bang! Without hesitation, Ray Minkai and Nine Dragons fired at the same time as the roar sounded, but they also avoided the bullets fired by each other at the same time, allowing them to set off meaningless sparks behind both sides. The game is over. Mr. Knight. After both sides fired at the same time and hid behind the bunker at the same time, Nine Dragons unloaded the magazine and replaced it with a new one. Let's go. Ray Minkai ignored Nine Dragons' clamor. Instead, he turned around and pulled Qin Yao, decisively running in another direction. Wait. Qin Yao wanted to cry out in alarm, but she was immediately interrupted by a gunshot that was so loud that it could almost tear apart her hearing. Da-da-da-da. Amidst the intense gunshots, the bunker that Ray Minkai and Qin Yao were hiding and was smashed apart in a few seconds, and a dazzling spark exploded. In the flickering flames, the chubby AS barbarian also slowly stepped over the burning bunker and locked onto Ray Minkai and Qin Yao. Be careful. It doesn't matter what happens to that man, but that girl is a valuable commodity. Nine Dragons looked at the surrounding flames as he stood beside the barbarian and warned him. Understood. With Nine Dragons' warning, the AS barbarian chased after Ray Minkai and Qin Yao. Mr. Knight, I wonder which one you will choose. The hostage on the passenger plane or the girl? Nine Dragons, who thought that Ray Minkai would be in a dilemma, did not know that the passenger plane crisis had been solved by a burping little white cat. Da-da-da-da-da. Boom. The gunshots that came from not far away made Sagara Sosuke frown deeply. Has it already begun? Sagara Sosuke did not have much trust in the white cat's words before, but the situation was so urgent that Sagara Sosuke felt that it was necessary to call for reinforcements. Sagara Sosuke quickly turned on the radio and cautiously paid attention to the surrounding situation while sending an encrypted message to the son of Dan Nu. Soon, Sagara Sosuke received a response. Sergeant Sagara Sosuke, report the situation you have now. Kalinen's voice sounded. Yes, Major. The passenger plane is now being kidnapped by a group of robbers. When I left, there seemed to be a gunshot in the cabin, but according to my speculation, the gunshot should only be a threat. Also, after the gunshot, that man, Ray Minkai, seemed to be taken out of the passenger plane together with Chidori. Sagara Sosuke simply explained the situation he knew. You saw it with your own eyes? Jialinen's question made Sosuke Xiangliang stunned. He subconsciously wanted to tell him about the white cat state zero, but when the words were about to come out of his mouth, Sosuke Xiangliang knew that this matter was too absurd. Thus, Sagara Sosuke changed his words. No, it was Mira who told me. That man, Ray Minkai, seemed to have known that the kidnappers would harm the passenger plane. When the passenger plane landed at the airport, he sent a signal for Mira and me to evacuate from the cabin. Sagara Sosuke's words made Kalinen and Teresa look at each other. Major, it seems that your speculation might be right. That man already knew what was going to happen. Kalinen sighed. Sir Colonel, this is the worst-case scenario. You have to know that our mithril intelligence system did not discover any signs of this operation before, but the other party was able to know beforehand. Sir Colonel should be very clear about what this means. Teresa nodded slowly, but she knew that now was not the time to dwell on this matter. This is the end of this point for now. Sergeant Sagara Sosuke, I can now ask you to delay the enemy's plan as much as possible. The reinforcements of the Dan slave's son will arrive soon. Yes, Sir Colonel. In the next second, the communication was cut off. Major Kalinen, let everyone attack. Isn't the transport plane ready to take off at any time? Teresa ordered. Yes, but if it's just Sagara Sosuke, I'm afraid it will be difficult to last until the transport plane arrives. Chidori is fine. After all, the kidnapper's goal is her, but the hostage on the passenger plane is probably. Kalinen mentioned another possibility. No, this is a gamble. Major Kalinen, we can only believe that Sergeant Sagara Sosuke and a man named Ray Minkai can make the passenger plane last until the reinforcements arrive. Teresa's expression was firm. In this regard, Kalinen slowly responded, Yes, Sir Colonel. Yes. Under the order, the long-awaited transport plane and the AS troops responsible for attacking the base and interrupting the kidnappers' actions attacked one by one under Kalinen's arrangement. Boom! At this moment, explosions continued to set off. no matter who it was. As long as they were sitting in the passenger plane, they could see the sparks rising from time to time from the porthole, accompanied by roaring explosions. What's the situation? Attack? Battle? Looking at the explosions in front of them, as well as the soldiers coming and going and constantly shouting something, the students of Shindai High School, no matter how long they had lived in a peaceful country, had already realized that the battle to reap lives had begun. This group of cowards, so noisy. In the cabin full of luggage, White Cat Zero burped and said disdainfully. Mira, on the other hand, sat quietly beside him, waiting for the next step of the operation to begin. Mira, aren't you afraid? The sky is exploding outside. Kai, that fellow, is being chased around by a few broken things. State White Cat Zero yawned and asked Mira. No, Mira is not afraid. Moreover, Ray Minkai, brother, will be fine. Mira shook his head and said his thoughts. TSK, it's so lively outside. Why do I have to lie here to protect this fragile passenger plane? Inadvertently, the kidnappers chasing Ray Minkai and Chidori seemed to have forgotten about the huge passenger plane and did not pay attention to the screams and wails in the cabin. On the contrary, they were constantly transferring the troops around the passenger plane to join the operation to surround Ray Minkai and Chidori. Chapter 344. Under the leadership of the barbarians, soldiers from all directions surrounded the warehouse where Ray Minkai and Xinyao were going to hide temporarily. What the hell is going on? Listening to the continuous mechanical sounds outside, Xinyao wanted to hide her body behind a container and subconsciously asked a question. It's just a kidnapping. Ray Minkai checked the remaining ammunition while casually answering Xinyao question. Kidnapping. After hearing Ray Minkai's answer, the corner of Xinyao mouth twitched and she complained crazily. What kind of kidnapping is this? Are there kidnappers who drive those messy armored weapons to kidnap? Moreover, there are no rich children in our class who are worthy of dispatching these armored weapons. We are all civilians. 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 But this is the situation in front of us. Ray Minkai blocked Xinyao ridicule with a single sentence, leaving her speechless. More and more soldiers were outside the warehouse, and the barbarians surrounding the warehouse had changed from 1 to 4, occupying 4 sides of the warehouse. The bright searchlights illuminated the walls of the warehouse to a deathly pale white, making them look exceptionally terrifying. Behind this deathly pale scene were the muzzles of guns pointing at the entrance of the warehouse, as well as a portion of soldiers who were trying to invade from the top of the warehouse through the ladder that had been built, thus capturing Ray Minkai and Xinyao. Hey, you can really escape. Our Mr. Knight. Behind this deathly white light, 9 dragons snorted and no longer paid attention to Ray Minkai. Time had been delayed for too long, especially with his understanding of Mithril. The time he had spent chasing after them was probably enough for Mithril to organize an AS unit that could break into this base and rescue them. As for the passenger plane, 9 dragons no longer had any interest in paying attention to it. Just as he had said before, time had been wasted meaninglessly. It was likely that Ray Minkai was not the only one on that passenger plane, and that there would be other people there. Under this consideration, 9 dragons did not feel that they could rely on the strength of this base alone to defeat Mithril's AS unit. I'll leave his place to you. Remember, please don't harm our precious goods. Under the light, 9 dragons turned around and left without hesitation. The 9 dragons left? In the warehouse, Ray Minkai carefully avoided the light of the searchlight and carefully observed the situation outside. He suddenly discovered that 9 dragons had left. But in the next second, Ray Minkai knew what 9 dragons wanted to do. Leaving at this critical moment was probably to activate the King of Hell. Otherwise, there was no need for the 9 dragons to turn around and leave when they were about to succeed. What a cunning enemy. After personally facing the 9 dragons, Ray Minkai's understanding of the 9 dragons was no longer limited to books and animations. Compared to the original work, Ray Minkai felt that the real 9 dragons were much more decisive, cunning, and cruel. However, this was inevitable. After all, veterans who had been on the battlefield for so many years and experienced life and death situations were definitely the most difficult enemies to deal with. Clang, clang, clang. Suddenly, a crashing sound came from the roof of the warehouse. Teacher Lei, someone's coming. Qin Yao's entire body trembled as she subconsciously turned her head to look, only to discover the dust that was constantly shaking off the top. Calm down. It's just a bluff. Ray Minkai raised his head to look at the roof of the warehouse and did not pay attention to the sound. The enemy should still be trying to reduce casualties as much as possible. Qin Yao, have you ever seen a meteor? Ray Minkai estimated the time and suddenly asked a question that had nothing to do with the current situation. What? Meteor? Qin Yao was stunned and reacted on the spot. Teacher, in this situation, you're still in the mood to see meteors? Do you really not care about your own life? However, after the explosion, Qin Yao realized that Ray Minkai did not seem to be joking. Looking at his expression, it seemed that a meteor would really appear. Teacher Lei, you can't be serious, right? Ray Minkai glanced at Qin Yao with a determined expression. Yes. Boom. In the next moment, the ceiling was broken open. It was the soldier who had climbed to the top of the warehouse through the ladder. It turned out that after bluffing for a long time, the soldiers who did not notice Ray Minkai and Qin Yao's movements simply broke a large hole in the roof of the warehouse and launched an attack. Chi, 2 black shadows were thrown in through the hole and landed near Ray Minkai and Qin Yao in the blink of an eye. Amidst the puffing sound of the gas, Ray Minkai pulled Qin Yao in another direction. Cover your mouth and nose. It's tear gas. Ray Minkai pulled Qin Yao behind him and immediately raised his gun to shoot at the hole. Thump, thump. The sound of gunfire continued to ring out until all the ammunition in the pistol was emptied by Ray Minkai. No more bullets? Qin Yao subconsciously looked around, only to discover that there was not even a single bullet in this warehouse. No, wait for death. Ray Minkai frowned slightly. The tear gas was spreading too quickly. Even with a bunker, it was unable to buy Ray Minkai any more time. So uncomfortable. The smoke from the tear gas filled the bunker and surged towards Ray Minkai and Qin Yao. In less than a minute, the soldiers who discovered that Ray Minkai had run out of bullets would definitely use the cover of the tear gas to rush in. Can't we escape? The irritating gas released by the tear gas caused Qin Yao's eyes to continuously shed tears of pain. Even his respiratory system was being tormented by the irritating gas. However, in this extremely uncomfortable situation, Ray Minkai's voice still floated into Qin Yao's ears. Qin Yao wants to be a classmate. Look, the meteor is coming. Qin Yao subconsciously raised his head and opened his extremely uncomfortable eyes to look at the top of the warehouse that had been broken open. There seemed to be a bit of light blooming there. Moreover, the light was getting brighter and brighter. Boom rumble. At this moment, the air was trembling, as if something terrifying was descending from the sky. The increasingly obvious rumbling sounds actually caused the tiles on the top of the warehouse to tremble, causing the soldiers who were preparing to attack to almost lose their footing. What happened? The strangeness beneath their feet and the blazing heat coming from behind caused these soldiers to subconsciously turn their heads. This was the last scene they could see in their lives. Boom! A huge fireball suddenly descended from the sky, smashing a large hole in the warehouse and shattering all the doors and windows of the warehouse. The shockwave that quickly spread from the inside of the warehouse to the surroundings also surrounded the soldiers in the warehouse. The AS barbarians rushed into a mess, no longer looking as arrogant as before. Cough, 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 cough. Qin Yao wanted to cough again and again, but in the next moment, she realized that she seemed to be protected by something. F***CK, what happened? Qin Yao wanted to catch his breath, but he couldn't help but be attracted by the scene in front of him. In the dark, there seemed to be an unknown existence observing the scene in front of him through Qin Yao's eyes. It was a white body half-squatting in front of Qin Yao. In front of its chest, its limbs were decorated with gorgeous patterns interwoven with golden components and spray paint. The most eye-catching thing was the protective shield formed by the silver metal liquid that enveloped the white body, Rei Minkai, and Qianyao. At the same time, this layer of metal liquid was also the key to allowing Rei Minkai and Qianyao to survive the collision just now. Titanium. Number 1. The weak stream of light emitted by the metal liquid gradually circulated, and Qianyao's eyes also lost their light, as if he had become another person, constantly uttering murmurs that sounded like he was in a dream. However, this murmur soon seemed to have encountered a jam, and intermittent jams appeared one after another. No, unable to analyze. Then, Qianyao's eyes rolled back, and he actually fainted. Rei Minkai, who had been standing at the side watching, reached out his hand and caught the unconscious Qianyao. Is it really limited to this world's black technology? Qianyao's abnormality just now was intentional by Rei Minkai. He wanted to see if Qianyao, the Whisperer, could see through the potential of Lancelot, the representative of the foreign technology system. The answer was obvious. The existence of the Whisperer would undoubtedly have a profound impact on the technology tree of the all-metal world, but could not see through foreign technology at a glance. In terms of foreign technology, the Whisperer would probably have to be the same as other scientists and technicians. He would also need the help of some cutting-edge technological instruments to be able to carry out research on foreign technology. However, this was also a story for later. Right now, what he should do was to resolve this farce. Lancelot, activate. Outside the warehouse, when the scattered AS barbarians and soldiers finally recovered from shockwave, just now, a white phantom rushed out of the warehouse. After a terrifying flash of red light, the two barbarians on both sides of the warehouse door were torn apart, turning into wreckage. What happened? The soldiers standing near the two barbarians had just recovered from their shock, but they found that the barbarians on their side were scattered all over the ground. Clang, clang, clang. Suddenly, there was a sound of metal falling to the ground on the other side. Looking back, it turned out that the other two barbarians had also turned into wreckage for no reason. However, this time, the pilot of one of the barbarian pilots was lucky enough to escape from the hands of the Grim Reaper. Death. Grim Reaper. White Grim Reaper. The pilot who was pulled out of the broken cockpit by the other soldiers muttered loudly in horror. At the same time, his eyes looked at the top of the warehouse. The other soldiers subconsciously followed his gaze. Under the moonlight, a body covered in platinum intertwined with scarlet swords stood quietly on the top of the warehouse, quietly looking at the soldiers below with its pair of electronic eyes that flickered with cold light. Then, under the fearful and doubtful eyes of the soldiers, a pair of light wings with fluorescent green light quietly spread out behind the white body. One in one room, rushed hundreds of meters into the air and rushed straight toward the airport runway, leaving behind a group of soldiers with dull expressions. Death. Grim Reaper. The silence after the white mech left was torn apart by the scream of the surviving pilot. The white body was Lancelot. After taking care of the barbarians with amazing mobility, Rei Minkai did not hesitate to change his target to the hangar on the side of the airport runway. The fighter there was the next target for Rei Minkai to clean up. Only by eliminating all these fighters first could the safety of the subsequent evacuation operation be guaranteed. Although the troops sent by Mithril would inevitably come with a wave of the same attack. I'll leave you to Mira first. Qianyao. Rei Minkai's gaze swept across the neatly arranged hangars, then looked at the unconscious Qianyao. Lancelot's speed was very fast, but because he was flying through the air, his swaggering appearance immediately attracted the attention of the surrounding barbarians. Rei Minkai, who was anxious to hand Qianyao to Mira, had no intention of fighting with these barbarians. Only by handing Qianyao to Mira, Rei Minkai could fight without any scruples. Otherwise, if another person was stuffed into the already small cockpit, how could Rei Minkai fight? Lancelot was not a two-person plane like Gawain. Mira, Kai is back. As soon as Lancelot appeared, the White Cat State Zero had already sensed it. Mira, who walked out of the cockpit and carefully hid in the shadow of the landing gear, was pleasantly surprised to see Lancelot approaching from afar and slowly landing beside the passenger plane. The moment Lancelot landed, the radiation shield immediately unfolded and blocked all the bullets fired by the barbarians. Ray Minkai carried the unconscious Qin Yao and jumped out of the cockpit, standing in front of Mira. Mira, please take care of Qin Yao. Now, I have some things to take care of. Mira nodded lightly as she took Qin Yao from Ray Minkai. Yes, brother. State Zero. When the reinforcements arrive, come and find me. Now, I'll have to trouble you to continue protecting this passenger plane. TSK. Troublesome. Go. Leave this place to me. White Cat State Zero curled its lips and waved its paw at Ray Minkai, indicating for him to leave quickly. With a flap of its light wings, Lancelot turned into a white ghost under the control of Ray Minkai and reenacted the Grim Reaper's reaping. In the electronic eyes of the barbarians, Lancelot's figure flashed up and down, left and right, and there was no way to lock onto him. In the end, the barbarian pilots who gave up on relying on the fire control system made the same decision. Fire together. Lock onto this white body's movement path. Da-da-da-da. Gunshots suddenly sounded. However, in this rain of bullets, Lancelot's figure was still ghostly. No matter how dense and terrifying the barrage of bullets from the 5 barbarians was, they still could not touch Lancelot's figure. Even if they were lucky enough to hit Lancelot, they were only blocked by the radiation shield released by Lancelot. Can't hit him. Why can't I hit him? Is this body a monster? Why can't I hit him? The closer Lancelot got, the more agitated the barbarian pilots became. The enlarged version of the AK assault rifle in the barbarians' hands was still roaring, but the pilots who were controlling it were already scared out of their wit by Lancelot, who broke through the barrage of bullets. The 2 scarlet swords cut through the air in an instant, intertwining in the air to form a deadly and beautiful pattern. Boom! The barbarian in the middle was chopped into pieces by the radiation sword in Lancelot's hands on the spot. Billowing smoke filled the air amidst the rising flames. The white Lancelot seemed to be covered with a layer of light woven from flames at this moment, looking exceptionally terrifying. Attack! Attack! The pilots could not imagine how Lancelot broke through the barrage of bullets. They gathered their last bit of courage and pulled the trigger at Lancelot in unison. However, in the moment when the barbarians' assault rifles roared again, Lancelot's figure disappeared once again. When he reappeared, the barbarian team was reduced to a pile of wreckage, swallowed by the destructive flames. Chapter 345. Above the night sky, there was an ear-piercing whistle. Subsequently, a terrifying number of aerial bombs scattered from the south to the north on both sides of the airport runway like a rainstorm, blowing up the hangars and the fighters that were lucky enough to escape from Lancelot's hands. The flames that soared into the sky and the loud, rumbling sound instantly became the main character of this world. They're here. Standing in front of the landing gear, White Cat Zero raised its head slightly and looked at the fighter fleet that swept across the night sky. Their appearance undoubtedly meant that the AS unit sent by Mithril was about to intervene in this kidnapping incident, and also meant that White Cat Zero was about to be liberated and go to Raymond Kai's side. Sir Zero, Chidori has been settled. On the landing gear, Myra's little head stuck out from the window. Okay, I got it. Mira, I'm going to meet Kai later. Do you want to come? At first, White Cat Zero wanted to place Mira on the passenger plane and be picked up by Mithril with the students of Meidai High School. However, after considering that Mithril could take Mira away, White Cat Zero finally decided to let Mira make her own choice. I'll go with you to meet my brother. Without hesitation, Mira made the decision in one breath. Really? Then wait for a while. White Cat Zero nodded slightly and accepted Myra's decision. Then, White Cat Zero's gaze looked to the other side. Their reunion that transcended life and death began. The sound of the fighter's engine tore through the night sky, and also tore apart Sosuke Xiangliang's memory. 9 dragons, standing in the shadow behind the container. Sosuke Xiangliang found a man running quickly through the aisle. And this man's appearance was exactly the same as someone Sosuke Xiangliang had personally killed when he was young. It can't be wrong. It's 9 dragons. That temperament, that appearance, and that pair of eyes that disregarded human life as nothing, it was definitely the man he had personally killed 9 dragons. I didn't expect him to still be alive. Sosuke Xiangliang was very sure that he had personally shot the bullet into 9 dragons' head. But strangely, the 9 dragons were still alive. Judging from his current actions, he was probably the mastermind behind this incident. With this thought in mind, Xiangliang Sosuke raised his head slightly and looked at the field engulfed in flames, as well as the white airframe that was constantly hovering around the airport. The 9 dragons' goal should be that white body. We must stop him. As soon as he thought of it, he immediately got to work. Sagayoshi Sosuke held an assault rifle that he had snatched from an unlucky soldier and chased after Jiu Long along the path. Following 9 dragons, Xiangliang Sosuke unknowingly arrived at a warehouse located in a remote part of the airport. In order to not be discovered by 9 dragons, Sijiliang Sosuke stopped following them. However, after looking around, Sagamiya Sosuke found that the door of the warehouse not far away was open. Moreover, Xiangliang Sosuke was also dissatisfied with the weapon in his hand. Thus, in order to test his luck, Xiangliang Sosuke carefully ran over. In the end, 3 barbarians that had not been activated happened to appear in this warehouse. At this moment, the AS forces that followed closely behind the fighter jets that bombed the airport finally arrived. Their arrival meant that the kidnapping incident had come to an end. Moreover, when Melissa and Cruz's AS forces landed, they didn't encounter any resistance, which made them very surprised. Melissa, who was observing the surroundings, very keenly noticed the white airframe that was hovering in the northwest part of the airport, above the building. That's an AS? An AS that can fly. Cruz, who immediately occupied the high ground, also blew a whistle. Wow, what beautiful wings! Our M9 doesn't have wings like that. Sister Mao, is that also our Mithril AS? Idiot, have you ever seen such an airframe on the Son of Dan's slave? Melissa angrily refuted Cruz's question. That's right. As the strongest Mithril airframe, the AS on it must be Mithril, or even the most advanced in the world. However, even so, when Melissa saw the white airframe hovering freely in the sky, she immediately denied the previous consensus. Because there was no AS on the Son of Dan's slave that could fly independently. It seems that the white airframe is the AS that took away our lost princess, and I'm afraid that the one sitting on it is our new English teacher. As the frontline commander, Melissa naturally knew some information. This was especially so when Kalinin had warned Melissa about Lei Mingkai's existence before they left. That English teacher? It can't be. That guy Zhong Jia actually fought with him face to face. What a surprise. Cruz let out a sigh of surprise and immediately said, "That's right. But back to the topic. Now, we're taking over this place." As soon as he finished speaking, the M9 that Cruz was piloting immediately raised its special 76mm sniper rifle and instantly shot a barbarian that was hiding in the shadow of the container, trying to launch a sneak attack on the white airframe hovering in the air. Boom! The fireball that burst out from the barbarian that was shot also attracted the attention of the white airframe in the next second, and at the same time, it also noticed the M9 that was occupying the high ground and fired the shot. Cruz, you're quite fast. Inside Lancelot, Ray Minkai glanced at the M9 that gave a thumbs up to Lancelot, then turned around and flew in another direction. Leave this place to Melissa and the others. Lancelot's opponent was not these frog-like barbarians, but the ferocious venom equipped with the lamb system. On the other side of the airport that was engulfed in blood and fire, a fat figure sped through the dark forest that was completely different from the blood and fire on the side. It was the barbarian piloted by Xiangliang Sosuke. Just now, after tracking 9 dragons to a hidden warehouse, Xiangliang Sosuke found the barbarian and tried to launch a surprise attack, but he did not expect 9 dragons to be aware of Xiangliang Sosuke's action from the moment they were tracked. Therefore, 9 dragons, who had been waiting for this moment, the moment when Xiangliang Sosuke could no longer hold back and launch an attack. The barbarians, shooting instantly, turned the warehouse where 9 dragons was into a hornet's nest, but other than the intense gunfire and the increasing number of bullet holes, Xiangliang Sosuke did not notice even the slightest spark that was about to explode in the warehouse. It was as if the bullets fired by the barbarian had disappeared silently, like a stone sinking into the sea. Suddenly, a slight buzzing sound entered Xiangliang Sosuke's ears. At this moment, Xiangliang Sosuke's instincts, which were honed from fighting bloody battles on the battlefield since he was young, allowed him to escape from the invisible danger. Boom! Under Xiangliang Sosuke's instinctive control, the barbarian's body suddenly fell to the left. An invisible force brushed past the barbarian's right shoulder and rushed to the back of the barbarian. In the blink of an eye, the unlucky container was blown into the air. Sniper? No, not sniper. Cold sweat broke out on Xiangliang Sosuke's forehead. At that moment, Xiangliang Sosuke seemed to have seen a white light break through the barrage of bullets, brushing past the barbarian's right shoulder by a hair's breadth. Other than the burning container, the barbarian's shattered right shoulder was another piece of evidence of the existence of that force. Take a roundabout route. He made a prompt decision. Faced with an unknown force, Xiangliang Sosuke did not rashly launch an attack. Instead, he took a roundabout route, trying to find out the enemy's true identity. However, no matter how fierce the barbarian's attacks were, they could not force the enemy out of the broken warehouse. Without a doubt, the enemy had already assumed a stance of waiting for Xiangliang Sosuke to deliver himself to them. However, Xiangliang Sosuke was not the kind of person who would rashly attack. Since the first plan did not work, he immediately adopted the next plan. The barbarian's movements changed. Under Xiangliang Sosuke's control, he ran wildly toward the black forest outside the airport. Thus, the scene of a chase just now played out. Crash! The rapidly running barbarian slid along the river bank and into the middle of the river that cut through the entire forest. Bang! Xiangliang Sosuke's heart trembled. He was unable to dodge the attack coming from behind. Boom! Along with the violent shock of the explosion, Xiangliang Sosuke clearly felt that the barbarian's right leg was broken. The barbarian crashed to the ground, splashing water several meters high. At the same time, it also made Xiangliang Sosuke dizzy. Crash! Another wave of water splashed. However, this wave of water came from another visitor in the night. The silver body was more slender than the barbarian. It had a body that was closer to the human body. It had a prismatic head, and from the back of the head, it had long hair that extended outwards. This was the night visitor that Xiangliang Sosuke saw. It was also the full appearance of the AS driven by 9 dragons. Bang! Xiangliang Sosuke wasn't surprised by this strange AS. Instead, this strange as once again raised its gun and shot the restless barbarian to the ground. Perhaps it was 9 dragons' bad taste, or perhaps the barbarian's defense exceeded Xiangliang Sosuke's expectations. After suffering a direct hit, the front armor of the barbarian's cockpit was also broken, exposing the defenseless Xiangliang Sosuke to the night sky. Humph! How could this be? The little devil that followed me. Is it over just like this? 9 Dragon's voice came from inside of the strange as. The huge impact of the front armor exploding made Xiangliang Sosuke dizzy, but he also heard 9 Dragon's voice very clearly. Struggling to hold on, Xiangliang Sosuke slightly raised his head and used his usual indifferent eyes to stare at the powerful AS in front of him. 9 Dragons, why are you still alive? The familiar yet strange tone, as well as the indifferent eyes, instantly reminded Nine Dragons of the little devil that almost killed him. Kasim. Kasim? Nine Dragons sneered a few times. He had already determined that Xiangliang Sosuke was that little devil. I didn't expect that we would meet again in this situation. Humph. Is that so? Kasim, you became Mithril's dog. Since that's the case, I won't be polite anymore. In a mechanical roar, the AS driven by Nine Dragons raised its rifle again and pointed at Xiangliang Sosuke, who was close at hand. Goodbye, Kasim. The dark barrel of the gun emitted an oppressive aura called death. Sagliang Sosuke subconsciously wanted to escape from this oppressive aura. But because of the direct hit just now, many parts of the barbarian's cockpit had been blown out, so Sagliang Sosuke's movements were restricted. Right now, there was not enough time for Xiangliang Sosuke to successfully break free from the barbarian's cockpit that had become a mess. Hey, goodbye. Bang. A gunshot sounded. Boom. A violent explosion blasted a big hole in the river below the barbarian and forcibly blew the river into two. Wallalala. Water that was tens of meters high scattered all over the barbarian's body like a torrential rain, which also made Xiangliang Sosuke look like a drowned rat on the spot. However, Xiangliang Sosuke didn't care about these things. Instead, he looked above the barbarian at the white body with a pair of illusionary wings of light. White, a winged AS. Xiangliang Sosuke's eyes gradually widened. He almost forgot that he should immediately retreat from the barbarian's cockpit. Xiangliang Sosuke, classmate, don't be in a daze. Hurry up and leave the barbarian. At this time, a familiar voice sounded. Rei Minka. Hearing this voice, Xiangliang Sosuke suddenly showed a shocked expression. Xiangliang Sosuke, classmate, you really disappointed me. Now, you should call me Teacher Lei. It's not right to call a teacher by his name. In the sky, the white machine slowly descended with its wings of light. It hovered 10 meters above the barbarians before stopping. It looked down at the machine that dodged the barbarian's Vari's rifle at the critical moment. Hey, teacher, I didn't expect to see a good show of a teacher saving a student. Kasim, I haven't seen you for many years. You really gave me a big surprise. Nine Dragons recognized the white body in front of him as the body that saved Mira. Not to mention other things, the pair of wings of light that were unique in the world today was the most obvious characteristic. Nine Dragons, nice to meet you. I'm Rei Minkai. A young man's voice came from the white body. Rei Minkai, hey, this voice is really you. Mr. Knight, I didn't think I was right. You really are a knight. Nine Dragons' pupils reflected the outline of the white body, and then a fierce light suddenly burst out from the depths of his pupils. But night has been extinct for a long time. Zhu Long shouted coldly. The AS he was piloting shone with a faint light as it closed its hands. Immediately after, this AS pushed the glimmer in its hand towards the white mech in the air with lightning speed. Under the night sky, a white light flashed. Boom! A huge explosion resounded through the night sky. But under this explosion, the scene that Nine Dragons imagined did not appear. The fluorescent green light shield was faintly discernible, and the white body behind it was still safe and sound. Lambda Drive System, a weapon that can convert the pilot's mental energy into physical energy? It's really powerful. But as long as the mysterious veil of the Lambda Drive System is lifted, how long can you still be brave? Nine Dragons. Under the moon, the white body named Lancelot quickly lit up with independent but interconnected light shields. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.